My people, what's good with y'all? Hey,
anything you want, then you can get.
hey,
Don't be scammed, cause then you'll regret it. You no longer gotta look pathetic, look pathetic. Gizzy credit. Anything you want, then you can get it. Don't
what's good, my people?
you'll regret it. You no longer gotta look pathetic, look pathetic. Gizzy credit. Anything you want, then you can get it.
What's good? What's good? Facebook Live, YouTube Live. What's good with the Rona? Florida, what's going on with you? Hey, hey.
Don't be scammed. What you need is just a change of plan.
Hey,
And time is money, you know.
get that cash. You already know. Hey, about to reclose again. Hey, ¿cómo estamos, mi gente? Hey, hey, my people, your boy GizzyCredit. Oh, what's good? Tanya McKenzie, were you dancing? We are dancing too. We always dance. People love the GizzyCredit song. I made that song back in 2012, 2013, because, you know, I wanted people to see that I was passionate about credit, so I made a credit song. Shout out to all of you. Thank you so much for logging on. Your boy GizzyCredit here. We talk about credit repair. We talk about economics, finance, what's going on in the real estate world. All you real estate investors, all you people trying to get new vehicles, get new credit cards, you're trying to buy a house, you're trying to get business loans. This is where you come to get education and to get the job done for you too. So shout out to everyone who logs on Facebook. Glenn Bayage, what's good with you? Andrew Huntbug over there in Minneapolis. What's good, Terrell? Perrin, what's good? What's good? Terrell, what? No, it's Michael Perrin. Michael Terran, I think. I got a customer that we got $25,000. He went on his own and got a $25,000 after we fixed his credit. So good for him. That video is coming up. Shout out to Melira Jones. Go Browns girl. Was good, Tanya. Anyways, let's get the show started. You guys already know John is the person who educates all of us. So let's get John on the phone. We're gonna have a good time with John because John is in Florida, and you know Florida is a hot mess right now with the coronavirus. So let's see what John has in store for us. And talking wise, let me know if y'all hear us too, okay? John.
Yes.
Yeah, y'all hear John? Let me know. Say hello, John. Hello. John, how is the coronavirus right now in Florida?
It sounds like it's getting worse.
What's going on with your state? Why everyone thinks that the Florida people are crazy? You know what I saw today? I saw something on Facebook. They did a thing. I don't know. I think it's the West Palm Beach. Everyone got together. You guys have like a government or something, and you guys go and speak your mind at the government, and you say how it's ridiculous to wear a mask, and you had a whole bunch of people saying how God is gonna take you when God's gonna take you. It was great.
I mean, first of all, you got to understand something about Florida in general. You know, I mean, it's like any state has, you know, I mean, I just think that there's people down here that don't want to be told to wear masks, and that's everywhere. But the problem is it's just getting exacerbated with the fact that, the case count's going up, and case count's going up like crazy, like hockey stick. So, a lot of that is testing. A lot of that is, the more people are testing, the more people are and the cases go up, more people are going to test, and there are younger people getting sick. And, like we talked about last week, I still don't, I still don't see how, other areas, you're starting to see other areas pick up that weren't a problem last week, and you're going to continue to see more and more of them because people just got together between the protests, and after that it was 4th of July and everything. That's everywhere. That's not just in Florida. That's not just in Arizona or Texas or Los Angeles. I mean, where there's people, this exists. Where it exists, it's going to tick up. I mean, even when, it was at the armpit of it, when it all came, if you think about it, and New York and the Northeast was getting hit the hardest, there were still cases everywhere else. It's just New York, because of the concentration of it and just the amount of media attention that was focused on it, it got a lot of...
How many people in little as New York City metro area? What? We got about 8 million people all crammed up. It's crazy.
That's a lot of people.
But yeah, Florida, it's more, surrounding areas. You guys are not as condensed as we are up here.
No, not even close. It's much less dense. I mean, it's much more, spread out down here. Even in the cities. I mean, you're talking about downtown West Palm is like, population is a couple 100,000 people. It's small. It's not nowhere near. But then you got to work your way down. You work your way down towards Lauderdale and Miami. A lot of the population is concentrated on the southeast, southwest coast, right? So
yes.
Situations like that.
It could be tourists too, trying to go over there to Florida. That's the only place in the East Coast that is like nice. It's hot all the time. Weather is steaming.
This isn't, like I was saying last year, this isn't normally the time people come down, especially with everything going on. But I mean, I just think that, and the Southwest is nice too. I mean, they're both families here in Florida. So is the Northwest, like Clearwater area. Those areas are nice too. It's just, look, the one thing you're not seeing down here is with all this media attention, it's almost as though we've normalized it as a society already. So, I mean, I don't see more people wearing masks. I mean, there was a point down here when the market was, everything was at its worst, right, as a result of the virus. And, you go work out, you see people working out with masks on, right?
Yes.
And then down here that wasn't normal, right? Because it just, to me, it's completely illogical. You're wearing a mask, you're sucking in your own carbon dioxide, whatever fibers are in the mask that you're wearing, you're sucking in. They're not meant to be worn to work out, but whatever the case, when things were bad down here, you saw it. You don't see anybody taking any extraordinary, measures, at least where I'm at, over and above what we're doing. I think other than people, I guess, have the testing at their fingertips, and as a result, they can go get tested if they feel like they're, there's a problem. But when you hear stuff like 10,000 new cases in a day, which I think I saw Friday or Saturday,
crazy.
That's fucking ridiculous. I mean, that is ridiculous. I mean, to think that it's gotten to that point, I don't know where that stacks in comparison to where New York was at its, or the New York area that was at its worst. But I know, I think it was Saturday, there was close to 50-some thousand new cases in a day in our country. I mean, that is insane. Obviously, if you think Florida was 10,000 of that, that's 20%. But, I mean, you still have another 40,000 cases, or 45,000 cases in that case, that sprouted up across the country. That's
Saturday, almost 11,000, Glenn Bayich said. And he's in Palm Beach County.
Yeah, and there was 55, and I think there was 55 in our country total, 55,000, I believe. So you're talking about, that's still 44,000 left across the rest of the country. That's a lot, man.
Correct.
So I mean, I can't tell you about the rest of Florida, but I can tell you that, you go into the stores and stuff, you got to wear masks. I mean, it's all the typical stuff, that you would do anywhere else. I'm not seeing anybody reckless. I don't think you go to bars anymore,
Oh, no, you guys shut that down, even for 4th of July. That was crazy.
But think about that, though. I mean, that's, you have to figure that's where a large concentration of the problem is, right? People drink, their immune system gets compromised. You're constantly rubbing up next to people at bars, sharing drinks, sharing cigarettes, sharing whatever else.
In Florida, come on, people lick shots off somebody's chest or belly button. Let's be real.
Have you been to Florida? It's not a Warren music video. I mean, it's a functional society. I mean, it's not the 80s. I mean, it's
not a Scarface movie.
No, it's like an 80s rock band. It's not an episode of
Miami Vice.
Yeah, it's not like, I mean, I'm sure there's areas in Miami like that, but I mean, in Palm Beach County, where I'm at, it's not like crazy like that, you know? I mean, there's still beaches and stuff. It gets crazy the more south you go, but either way, if you think about it, it's and you take the drinking out of the equation and just that tight concentration of people with compromised immune systems and touching and sharing shit and all that stuff. I mean, it should, in theory, slow it down, but it doesn't, you know. I know there's a lag on this thing that it's like 2 weeks before it starts to kick in. So it's really, for the last 2 weeks, it's just been going parabolic. So hopefully we'll see some kind of a leveling off. I don't know if I see that happening, but I know that I'm taking the necessary measures. So they were talking about sending kids back to school.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? You know, like I don't even know how you have that conversation right now. You can't get it under control at an adult level. How are you going to get it under control at a child's level, right? Like, if you can't figure out how to get grown people to follow your instructions, how the fuck are you going to get like an 8 or a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old with a bad attitude to listen to what you have to say? Get out of here.
They go get the Rona. The next thing you know, they pass it to their grandparents. And
exactly. You're talking about a melting pot, right? And look, I got young kids, right? So you send your kids to school. The one thing that you bank on when kids go back to school is that you're going to get sick.
Oh, you're going to get germs. Yes.
Yeah, because there's parents that literally use school as daycare, right? So that doesn't matter if that kid's got a snot gutter, you know, that looks like a mustache on an 8-year-old. That kid's going to school. That kid could be coughing, whatever. The parents send them in and they got no guilt about it.
Yes.
The problem is that works around like wildfire, right? So I don't know how you do it now. I mean, I don't even know how. I mean, they're all so like confident in the idea that you're just going to start schools back up and poof. You know, I mean, I got 2 kids in school and I haven't gotten one valid explanation on how they're opening school back up. And we're what, July? School down here starts the 3rd week of August.
Yes, yes.
Out. They're still not. It's a mess, man. It's a mess, and it's, you know, any politician that tries to act like they have their hands around the situation, bullshit, because they have no idea what they're doing, and they're rolling the dice. I think, you know, obviously everybody's harping on the masks now, and I think that's great, and I think it's necessary. But outside of that, they don't have a clue. You know, I mean, they're just holding I mean, New York's already doing a victory lap just because the guy from Florida did his victory lap too early, right? DeSantis, he did his soapbox.
Well, here in Jersey, you have some people who still ask about wearing a mask. I still wear my mask if I'm going to go to the grocery store, BJ's, or wherever. I wear my. Whether they tell me, oh, but it doesn't work and it's not 100%, I don't care. I'm not going to wear it. No, I mean, I'm going to wear it. I'm going to wear it.
Down here, you don't have a choice. So you have to wear them when you go into anywhere. Anywhere you go into, you have to wear them. So I don't know if you guys got an option of that up there, but down here, you don't have a choice.
No, I'm in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is where the whole shit hit the fan. I mean, this is crazy over here. It was crazy. Whatever you're getting now, we've been had months ago. Now we're just leveling off. Yes.
You know, I mean, I know the last 10 days at the Jersey Shore, it looked like a packed sardine can. So, I mean, I can't even imagine. All people do those 2 weeks there is just get drunk and hang out, right? So I can't even imagine what is going to come out of that, but I hope nothing bad.
I hope nothing bad either, because I plan on going down to the Jersey Shore again in August. So hopefully the beaches are opened.
Yeah, man. Hopefully, yes. I think hopefully all this stuff, there's some sort of a, you know, you can only have hope. And, you know, unfortunately, though, situations like this where, you know, the vaccines and stuff there's a certain period it takes to get to that point.
You have people who are pro-vaccine and then people who are like, I'm not going to take it, or I've never been sick with it.
No, but look, in that situation, though, let's just say, without getting too far down this line and getting off topic too far.
Correct.
If you think about it for a second, even if somebody's, I'm not taking a vaccine, they get really sick and they go to the hospital, they're taking the vaccine, right? I mean, even if they want to avoid it, walking around on the street, they want to, I'm anti this, I'm anti that's great. But when they're sitting on that bed and they're, shaking and they got all kinds of stuff,
whatever you. That's when we start praying.
They're not going to sit there and say, no, I'm not shake it. There's absolutely no way that that's happening. So, I mean, even the people that are claiming they're eventually going to take it. I mean, because they have to. Be crazy not to. What are you gonna? It's just.
Unless you hear the news and the news tells you it's bad for you. People listen to the news. Don't listen to the news. Don't listen to the president. Listen to your doctors. That's 100%.
That's even a tough call anymore, man.
Even the doctors? I mean,
no, not the doctors. I'm just saying, it's tough anymore. You really got to do your work. I mean, more so now than ever for consumers in our country. Thank you, Facebook. Thank you, Twitter. Thank you, Instagram. Thank you, whatever the other ones are. You literally have to do your homework on anybody you coexist with, right? Yes. You really do, because a large part of our society is social media, and social media is completely riddled with myth, fiction. I mean, people make up complete alternate egos. I mean, you got a guy that, not that there's anything wrong with this, he might work for Comcast putting in cable lines, and you see him on Facebook sitting in a private jet carrying what look like bricks of gold, right? And he's a Bitcoin billionaire, right? And then the guy works at Comcast pushing wires, right? So not that there's anything wrong with that. The point is, I mean, it's just such a fictitious situation, and there's no way to validate it or devalidate it. It makes, without the individual really having to do their research on who they're operating with, which I think you should always do anyway. It's just, I think it's gotten to such a point of craziness, especially since the current president is in office. It's like it took off from there,
Yes.
When people realize that Facebook has the power to manipulate on such a large scale, that manipulation just, I mean, I know it was there before, but or maybe it's just more prevalent.
Well, it radicalizes people, that's for sure.
Oh, my goodness. You want to talk about that? I remember back in the day when it just used to be left and right leaning, Now, I mean, the only stuff you find on Facebook is radical left, radical right.
Yes.
That's all you
There's
find.
nobody in the middle, and if you're not in either team, you bad.
Yeah, but it's not even, there's not a middle ground either.
Yes.
Right? It's either far left, far right. There's no left or right leaning. It's crazy. But I don't want to get on political talk.
Well, talking about, like, I know that, but talking about, which leads straight into the topic of myths, okay? Just recently, there's a new thing, John. The new thing is called credit mirroring.
You're going to go with this again.
I had a guy who called me. Guess where he's from? Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta, Georgia. And he says, hey, and he probably watches these videos. Listen, I'm not trying to make fun of you, okay? We're not making fun of you. This is a forum type of situation that we have here with this podcast, where everyone learns from everyone, okay? But you're probably watching this and you're probably gonna be like, there go Gizzy talking about me. And it's not that it's we're making fun of you, is that this is a topic. If you know about this topic, then other people know about this. So credit mirroring, what the person told me was that he said I have $5,000 in stimulus checks, stimulus money, and I want to invest it into my credit. I said, how? Well, I want to do credit mirror. You ever heard of that? I said, no. What is it? Well, it's that when you go and you get a secure credit card, and then you go and apply, and because of credit mirroring, if you go to Capital One, it mirrors your credit. So therefore, whatever you're paying on as secured, you're going to eventually get approved for that amount. So he has $5,000. He wants to go and get a $5,000 secured credit card while still having bad credit. Matter of fact, he told me towards the end, Jay, that he had a bankruptcy on his credit report from 4 years ago, but was able to build his credit a little bit again. And I said, how was you able to build your credit? Oh, I have another secure credit card for 2 years. How much is the limit on that? $300 Capital One. I said, bro, you need credit repair first. Don't jump from step 1 to step 5. Take your time.
But that wouldn't even be a step in the process.
No, he just jumped.
You know what I mean? That wouldn't be our step in the process, right? So they wouldn't even be jumping from step 1 to whatever.
So now, Jay, they have this thing called credit mirroring. So I'm like, what? And then I tell John, and then John, reality hits in when John talks because John is a credit expert. And we wanted to talk to you guys about the distinctions or the differences on what's the most effective way to build your credit, either using secure credit cards or using authorized users. So you could take it away, John.
Right. So, the credit mirroring, I don't even know where these things arise from, just understanding the banking side of it, right? Understanding how the approvals work and how credit is issued and things like that. I just don't even understand how these things are arrived at, like the philosophy that this is an individual. Again, we're not trying to poke on this particular individual. This is just an example, and we try to clarify some misconception by just breaking out facts, right?
Yes.
So if this individual still has BK accounts included in BK, et cetera, and so on and so forth, that sounds about right that he'd have to get a secured card if he wasn't going to work on his credit, right?
Correct.
I wouldn't advise him. That's a very slow route, right? If you just get secured cards and sit on them for a couple of years and parlay that into a 500, whatever the case. If you want to take your time and slowly let them age off, that's fine. That's good. But the reality is, when you go and you get in the moment a secure card for $5,000 or $500 or $5, that's them basically saying, listen, your credit isn't good enough right now for me to give you money unsecured.
Correct.
So we're going to take your money, we'll collateralize it with a card, and we'll charge you, 25% interest, which is like store card interest, on your money, and we'll keep the interest. Now, I don't know. That sounds like somebody kicking me in the nuts and then when I'm bent over, kicking me in the ass. Because that doesn't make any sense, right? Because they said hey, listen, guy, your credit isn't good enough for me to lend to you, right, on normal terms. But this is the great deal we're going to give you. We're going to let you give us $5,000. We're going to hold it for you. And we're going to turn around and give you a card with a lending capacity up to $5,000, which is your money that we're collateralizing. But we're going to do you the favor of lending your money back to you 25%, right? And then we're going to keep the interest. And then you have to pay it every month because we're going to report it. And if you don't if you don't pay every month on your own money at 25%, then we're going to report it as a negative account, which I've also seen, right? But here's the problem with the secured credit cards. You get no age. There's one time when secured credit cards actually help, right? If you're somebody that has a really thin file and you have no accounts on your credit, none, and you want to go get a mortgage and somehow, some way you're trying to establish a credit score, or maybe you have a paid off auto loan or something old, but just a very thin, you have no active accounts, because every mortgage program is going to require you to have at least a minimum requirement of open active accounts, right? Typically it's somewhere between 2 and 3, depending on the overlays of the lender.
Correct.
And in those situations, opening up a secure card will meet that stipulation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Put a couple $100 in it, take it from the pot that you had set up for your closing costs, add it on there. It meets the requirement from the underwriter, done deal. Get your money back after, that's it, right?
Yeah.
It's there for just the purpose. But if you're doing it to actually build credit, how long do you think you got to keep that secure card open for and that money tied up until it starts actually assisting you? The thing we see more commonly, right, is that people open these because they're misled on the success of them or just the advantages of them. And they'll go and they'll take, $500, $1,000, and they'll put it on a card, right, for a secure card. And then they'll immediately go use all that $1,000 because they needed that money, right?
Yes.
They needed that money. So what ultimately ends up happening is, they got a new account reporting, which they're getting very little credit for at that point. But immediately what happens is it shows up as a maxed out card because people take the money back out because they need the liquidity. So now your unsecured credit ratio is around like 100%, assuming you had nothing else on there. Or if you were trying to build, that might be one of your biggest lines and it's weighing you down greatly. So there's a very large probability that your scores will be lower because you extract all that liquidity you put into that card in order to be able to open it because you thought it was going to help just having the additional account, when in reality it does the opposite. So, as we talked about before, with authorized users, there's a lot of benefit to them. I understand everybody's argument that some algorithms now, certain unsecured credit cards aren't honoring them. Absolutely. It's just the way it is. All of them aren't, but a large majority of them are not honoring them, and they're not acknowledging them when they're making approvals. The problem is there's a lot that still are, and more importantly, those that use still, they don't get washed out when you're going for a mortgage approval and you need your score in a certain place, like we talked about in the previous podcast. They don't get washed out when you're trying to get an auto loan approval and they need a certain score at a certain place to qualify for a certain rate, right? Because auto lending is a lot more flexible. It doesn't negate the benefits that come along with it, the extended age that comes along with it, the feathering out of the unsecured credit ratios that come along with it. Obviously, I'm talking about authorized users right now. So, I mean, obviously, they're not cheap, depending on who you utilize. I mean, we always advocate people to find a friend or a family member to add them. If they don't have that opportunity, then they can always have the opportunity to coordinate with the vendor that we utilize in order to facilitate it. But, that's not the go-to. The go-to is to figure out a way to do this economically or not even have to pay for it in a way to get there. Now, going and taking thousands of dollars in this particular instance, $5,000, and thinking this goes over a year, even though your credit is still tarnished and obviously in a compromised position, and you go and give them $5,000 for them to lend back to you with 25% and make $1,000 or $2,000, a year on you, right, for lending that out, and thinking that they're going to turn around and say, all right, buddy, look, you took your licks for a year, here's your $5,000 back, and we're going to give you $5,000 unsecured money. That's ridiculous, right?
Yes.
It's ridiculous. You're still just as much of a credit risk, and not only that, but more importantly, you just made them a couple $1,000s on money they didn't even have to come out of pocket for. So what on earth would motivate a lender who knows your report isn't better to say, you know what, Dad, let us give you your $5,000 back. That first year you paid incredibly. Forget about all the other stuff on your credit. That first year you paid on this $5,000. That's your money. We want to give you that money back, and we want to reward you without even having to check your credit and give you another $5,000 unsecured just because you gave us $5,000. It's ridiculous. It's insane. And honestly, even if a human being was looking at that, a human being wouldn't validate it, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot more to somebody's spending pattern than 12 months, even if that was legitimate, right?
Yes.
There's nothing that looks at a 12-month spending pattern in order to determine somebody's habitual habits as it applies to taking out credit. So even if it was 2 years, it would be tough. But obviously 2 years pushing out even further than that, you would hope that some of the stuff would, I don't know how old the BK, the particular example you provided, I don't know how old that is.
It's 4 years, 2016.
4 years. You figure 2 years on there, that puts you at 6. You're on the back end of it. So it may start to open up smaller unsecured opportunities if the guy doesn't clean it or a girl doesn't clean anything else at that point. But it doesn't turn around and open you up to, again, what the scenario was. And in that situation, it only somehow starts to resemble reality because of just the aging of the original issue, right? Of the original event that started the whole process. It has nothing to do with the secured card tying up $5,000. Because in essence, just to be clear, a secured card isn't you. As much of an AU, and everybody's argument is an AU, they're seeing through it on the unsecured side and such. They see through that with a secured card too. If you're somebody that has a secured card and you try to get a credit card and you have a $1,500 secured card and they give you a $500 secured credit card, you call and say, well, listen, why do you only give me $500? I have a $1,500 secured. They're going to say, well, that's a secured card. It's like a training wheel, right? For lack of a better term. You don't go from a training wheel to a motorcycle. It doesn't work like that. So, I mean, there is a segue there that exists, the transition, and it's there for a reason. It's a transitional period for somebody that's going to go the long route to get it set up. Secure cards have not and will not ever be set up for the purposes of a shortcut, right?
Yes.
They're just not set up that way. They're not. Most people don't. If you've ever seen somebody that has a secure card for more than 12 to 18 months, that's a beautiful thing because most people realize after the first 6 months that it's not what they thought it was and they close it. Somebody lasts a year, it's only because they're trying to get all their money back and they're trying to pay it down in order to be able to get that whole amount of money back. If somebody lasts longer than a year, it is very, 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 very rare. I mean, I'm talking, at least in our experience, very small percentage. takes time to understand everything, and I totally get that. Because the internet will have you believe that these secure cards are spectacular, but guess who funds those ads and those commercials? The banks.
Correct.
Right? The banks. Because think about this. Think about if you were a lender and people are saying, yeah, please take my thousands of dollars and lend back to me at interest you get to keep and you get no risk. Just think about that for a second, right? Just take that another step further. I don't mean to keep harping on it.
But you get to build credit, John.
But you're not building credit, though. You're not. I mean, let's just say the individual, bucks the trend, right, and goes 12, 13 months. What loan, line, mortgage, etc., values a 13-month trade line? You
at least got to have 2 years, 24 months of payment history.
When you're on the unsecured side, it's more than that. I mean, nobody goes and says, yeah, give me a 12-month AU, because you're doing it for age, you're doing it for depth, you're doing to go horizontal, not vertical. You're trying to widen out the file and give it some fat to it so that it's got some age. Adding a secured card is just literally just adding an account.
Correct.
It's like having another account. It's just having another. It's not doing anything for you.
So the age is more important than the person actually applying and having an income. You know how you go and apply and you gotta have, your credit score gets you in the door, but what approves you is your income minus your expenses.
You're talking about on the mortgage side?
No, whenever you go for a credit card.
Well, yeah, on the credit card, but most people, it's not a full doc situation in most cases, so they just state the stuff, right?
Yes.
So somebody making 30 grand says they make 250 grand, right?
Yes.
And then it eventually, like we talked about before, there's information sharing among these entities. I don't know if you have, excuse me, if you have anybody that has a credit card that's listening to this or does listen to this knows every year you get an information sharing document from your credit card lender. And it says you're entitling us to share a certain amount of information with other credit card lenders in an effort to prevent fraud and this and money laundering and so on and so forth, right? So even when somebody puts 250 grand on the stated application, the reality of the situation is they have a general idea of what you make. Right? So people can bullshit all they want. But it's not full doc, but there's ways for them to identify roughly where somebody's income really resides at, right?
So let's say someone's trying to get a high limit credit card, and this is a question that we may not answer, but some people try to manipulate the numbers and say that they get paid more money than what they show that they're paying on their credit report. So when does a tax form 4506 come in? 4506T?
Yeah.
So when does a 4506T come in?
Typically speaking, anything mortgage related, you got to do a 4506T. For anybody there, we talked about this before, I'll talk about it again. 4506T just means the lender requests to order their own transcript to corroborate what you're claiming your income is or that you showed on your tax return. So effectively what they do is make you fill out a form, it's just one page, and they request your short form tax transcripts from the IRS for however many years. Every lender doing a mortgage has to do it, so anybody getting a mortgage, post-Dodd-Frank, ever since, because in 07, 06, 05, people were making up pay stubs, tax returns, etc., and they were pumping mortgages out so quickly at that point that it just wasn't corroborating. It wasn't until after the fact that people got in a lot of trouble. Not even trouble. It was bad. But whatever the case, they were this was their way post Dodd-Frank of just making sure that anything that somebody states when it comes to a mortgage is corroborated as far as income, so it doesn't put the investors at risk. Now you're going to see it on a mortgage. You go to any traditional bank for an unsecured loan, you're going to see the same thing. They're going to request you to do a 4506T. Most unsecured credit lines, you're going to see it. A lot of business lending, you're going to see the 4506T, depending on the product. Obviously, I'm not talking about merchant cash advances or anything like that. I'm talking about traditional types of business funding, not credit cards, not auto loans, but like if you did an actual loan, an SBA loan, you're 4506T it. Things that are typically larger, significantly larger in amounts, or can be larger in amounts, where the bank's exposed to more risk is where you're going to see it. Like I said, the mortgages, the personal loans in a lot of cases, personal unsecured lines of credit, business lines of credit. I'm not talking about credit cards. I'm talking about cash lines. And in some cases, I know Wells is really stringent about their even their credit cards. I've seen them. Some people ask for tax returns in 45060.
Oh,
but in
wow.
most cases, it's typically isolated in a lot of cases to personal loans, business loans.
And American Express too. If you get like a high limit one, they'll ask for that.
You mean a card?
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends on how high you have to get up, because in all fairness, I mean, that's not typically the protocol. I mean, maybe it's happened here and there, but that's not normally the situation, because the underwriting for a card and an auto loan are totally different. So, the algo is normally doing almost all the approval on an auto loan. It's not a
Do
human
you
being
get a 4506T on an auto loan?
What's that?
Do you get a 4506T on an auto loan? Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, like, when you look at like the algorithms for the approvals on credit cards and auto loans, they're automatic. You know what I mean, for the most part. And if for some reason it's not automatic on the credit card side, it's because there was some kind of an inconsistency and they need to review it, right?
Yes.
If you ever don't get an automatic approval and you don't have some kind of an alert on your report, there's a very strong probability you've been turned down, right? But if you have some kind of an alert on your report and they want to look at it and review it, they're doing that just to make sure you are who you say you are, right?
Correct.
So approvals are typically recommended all algorithmically. When you go through a mortgage process or personal loan process, the amount of money that you make largely hinges on the amount you're going to get approved for. So if you're taking out a large loan, the income that you're going to provide to them through a tax return or whatever that they're going to request, it needs to be corroborated, because that's what, the credit score in those situations gets you in the door. But the income, like you said earlier, is what's going to determine the amount. That's why it weighs heavily on that. When you're talking about auto loans and credit cards, that's largely score driven, right?
Correct.
And it's a little bit of a different procedure for the reasons we've talked about on many podcasts before that, right? I mean, they lend at exorbitantly high interest, so even if the default rate is higher, they're still making money hand over fist in those areas in a normal functioning market, right?
But
talking about auto loans and credit cards.
Yes. Now, with auto loans and credit cards, our $99 do-it-yourself credit card funding system has unsecured aggressive lenders, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the $99 system gives you good lenders for each bureau that should work in any situation if the report looks good, right? I mean, we get questions a lot, like, has it been updated? Updated with what? You know what I mean? Like, the capitalization of the banks in this country has only gotten larger. So the banks and credit unions that we're providing, which aren't small-time credit unions, small-time institutions, they've only gotten larger, and leading up to before the virus. So
yes,
I mean, there doesn't need to be adjustments. If something's working, it's working, right? You don't need to constantly be looking for the next best thing just to tell the guy next to you that you're credit mirroring, right?
Yes.
Just some ridiculous coin, thing that doesn't substantiate in real life, and it's not gonna be talked about again in 6 weeks, right? We were talking about, Gizzy and I were talking about on the phone today, just about since this whole coronavirus thing started and all the myths that we've had to dispel, right?
Crazy.
Initially, remember, it was the bureaus are going to close. That was the first myth, right? That was the fire that was floating around everywhere. The bureaus aren't open. Nobody's going to respond to the disputes, and nobody has to pay their credit bills, and because the bureaus aren't going to be able to respond. That was like 2 months of ridiculousness, right?
Yes.
So we had to make a podcast about it, and obviously we're right. And the myths. I mean, any of these myths, they come and go like rashes. Right,
yes.
but then the next thing was nobody has to pay the bills because this, that, and the other thing, and it continues to evolve, and it's been an evolution for the last 10 years of these myths that they spring up out of nowhere, and then once you actually rationalize it, like if you have a firm understanding of how this stuff works and the inability of some of these things to be able to actually occur, it's very easy to debunk it, right? But if you're somebody and you're an impressionable mind and you're trying to learn and you're trying to be able to arrive at these decisions on your own, and you constantly have this horse shit thrown down your face, thrown down your throat, It's unfortunate because, you know, we try to do our best to debunk a lot of this stuff and just provide rationalization around it so you can get a firm base of understanding why it doesn't make sense, or why it doesn't work, or why it's not going to work, and why, you know, this will work. And, you know, just so even somebody with even the smallest amount of fiscal understanding, I go into a lot of depth for the purposes of that any education level, understanding level can grasp it, right?
Yes.
You know, I don't go in these long diatribes because I'm trying to listen to myself talk. I'm doing it because I want to put as much detail around some of these topics so that anybody can understand it. You don't need to have some kind of a lengthened understanding of finances to be able to understand some of the topics we're covering, and a lot of them are broad. So it's just a shame that we're constantly having to dispel this stuff. I don't know why, and I've said this in the beginning, I don't know why the truth isn't good enough. You know? Like,
they want to believe something else. Everybody wants to give business funding. Everybody who's, you know, the whole goal, oh, I want to get business funding. And they think it's going to happen like that.
I know. And it's, listen, look, I respect people and I respect the wanting to do things and wanting to set yourself up and wanting to position yourself properly. I get it. I respect it. I understand it, right? I understand the psychology of it. Yes. The problem is a lot of these things, see, I've been around so long doing this for the last 10 or 11 years. I've seen some of these hustles come and go. They come around, they percolate for 4, 5, 6, months, sometimes a year, then they disappear. They come back under a different name. It's just a constant hustle, and it basically attacks. This isn't, by the way, I'm not talking about the secure cards right now, right? I'm talking just about more some of the mythological stuff that just exhibits out there, exists. It tends to present itself after a period of time when you need, if you're not somebody that totally understands what you're talking about or maybe understands all the inner workings of exactly what's going on in this financial structure that we have set up in this country and how the banks went and how they correlate this stuff and how they validate this stuff. If you're not fully understanding, it's very easy to sell somebody a brick of gold or a brick and then tell them, paint it yellow and call it a brick of gold. Very easy to do because the person on the other end is unsuspecting, right? They're assuming that you're telling them the truth. Yes. And they don't know any better. They have no way to validate it. They're just going off of what appears to be some kind of a perceived hack or some kind of inside knowledge. I love the ones, and everybody, I'm sure that's how somebody knows somebody that works at the bureaus. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's incredible, right? When you get one of them, I mean that's like the gold star, because I mean nobody knows. I mean, again, just to be clear, just to rationalize this in case anybody's listening has heard somebody say that. Mm-hmm. Experian is is the most employed of the 3 bureaus. Okay, of that, I believe they have 10 or 11,000 employees total, something like that.
Okay,
and most of them work in the fraud department, right? The other ones are sales. They're sales. There's no human beings there handling disputes, the millions and millions of disputes. They're all done algorithmically. So somebody working in sales who obviously is not going to have any type of access to anything dispute related, right? They're certainly not going to be on the coding side, right? Because there's coders and stuff like that. And there's going to be a certain level of security there. To think that somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that works there and they have the inside scoop to be able to go and finagle stuff, it's like, come on, man. That's like saying somebody works at the Federal Reserve, right? And you're gonna somehow get bricks of gold and bags of money just because you know the guy that works. It's ridiculous, right? I mean, I know it doesn't sound ridiculous when somebody's saying it to you, but if you step back and you take everything else out of the equation, it's ridiculous. And I just, I'm hoping that some of this stuff, and I know in some cases it's helping, but I'm hoping that some of this stuff can help people to start looking at, some of the stuff we're conveying can start to help people look at things abstractly, right? Rather than just taking people at their word just because they say something, they start to look at it a little more abstractly and say, well, that doesn't make sense, right? Or that doesn't make sense because of this. That doesn't make sense because of this. And then at least I know we're getting through to some people, because, it's not that hard to pick up on something that doesn't make sense if you really understand how it works.
Nice.
And I know I just went on a tangent on something that has nothing to do with security cards, but it was something we were talking about earlier today.
No. That's why... still you don't get these questions because of the people who watch our podcast and watch the YouTube videos. You guys, the customer that we get now doesn't, kind of understand and kind of is not a customer that wants everything done tomorrow. You know, the customer that we get now is understanding that this is a process. This is not a black and white thing, and it deals with heavy shades of gray. But the people I speak to before I send them our information, they, you know, the people online that I see, the people who call or text me, and some people who I watch on social media, you know, they got these crazy things. You know, they say crazy stuff about credit, and I'm like, what is going on here? And the next thing you know, I hear credit mirroring, and that's the new, that was the new thing, which cracks me up. But at the same time, we are in the almost the middle of summer. Not almost the middle of summer. We just started summer back in late June. But anyways, it's all on educating you, because this is the time where it's hot for people to buy homes. It's hot for people to, you know, get vehicles and all that. So the more educated you are on what works and what doesn't work, it'll be better for you.
Yeah, but how about just, not to interrupt you, but how about just knowing, right?
Yeah.
Just how about just knowing? Because you know what, at the end of the day, whether you intend on buying something, whether you intend on doing anything with your credit, knowledge is power, right?
Yes.
It really is. I know you see all these people with these quirky things at the bottom of their emails and their Facebook page, and knowledge is power, right? I don't think people truly understand what that means, right?
Yes.
When they say knowledge is power, it really is. Because if you understand how all the strings are pulled, if you understand all the rules of the game, that allows you to make a chess move, not a move out of emotion, not a move out of desperation. You won't need to make a move out of desperation because you already be playing a chess move 2 steps ahead of it, right? And that's why we try to do this, because the knowledge we're trying to bestow is knowledge that you can hopefully assist you in making some of these chess moves. Because
yes.
if you know what to anticipate, and you know how this works and how that works and this works, and the things, some of these large pillars that we talk about as it applies to this stuff, you can start to map these things out in advance, you know, and prepare. You know, like a lack of preparation is a preparation to fail, right?
Yes.
And it all goes hand in hand. It really does, man. I mean, it really all goes hand in hand. Trying to always go with the fly-by-night, the guy that promises you the snake oil, and I'm not talking about anybody in particular, I'm speaking generally.
Correct.
And I'm not here to trash anybody.
Correct.
But I'm saying the people that promise you things that seem unattainable, and you know deep down in your gut it's unattainable because it sounds unrealistic, that should be saying something, right? So,
yes.
You know, hopefully a lot of the stuff that we try to, I don't want to go and stand on too much of a soapbox here. I just, you know, I want to make sure that for the people that consistently listen to us, I know there's a lot of people that do, and I know there's a lot of people that also take notes with this stuff and also are doing their homework, and I'm happy about that. I really am, because I'm happy that, you know, if we can just help one person.
Yes.
You know, just think how much money that saves just that one person, right? Outside of the credit stuff and everything like
there's
that.
thousands of dollars, especially when we get people who have 2 vehicles and they make over $100,000, but yet their credit is not the best, and they think that having a 15.99% on both vehicles just because you have the vehicle is a good deal. And the next thing you know, they start credit repair. They're able to just to get one vehicle with like a 3.1%.
It blows their mind. Yeah, it blows
it's
their
like
mind.
I just finished saving $13,900. If I would be in this payment with these 2 vehicles for the life of the loan, I would spend $13,900
more. You spend 14 grand more each. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
Correct.
It's stuff like this. Some people are just happy with just getting approved. But if you understand how the report needs to look to get approved, then you can position yourself that way. It shouldn't seem like that much of a surprise, right?
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. The knowledge is the power. If you listen, and I promise you, the stuff that we're saying in these podcasts, this is the knowledge that you need. These are the questions that you should be asking. These when you're walking into any situation related to financing. How is this going to help me? How is this going to hurt me? Is this going to help me? Is this a waste of time? Is this bullshit, right? All this stuff. You know, we've covered debt to income ratios, broken mortgages down every which way to Tuesday, and we'll probably continue to break them down even further, right? We've broken down real estate investing, we've covered stocks slightly. We're going to continue to cover a lot of them over.
Oh, they got Curtis Davis is asking, did you guys talk about the fire NASDAQ today up 2%. I said, we're going to get on it later. You know what I'm saying? Because it's, once you start talking about that, it's like all this, yeah, you guys get lit up. And we're only 50 minutes into the podcast already like this, Jay. It's time flies.
Yeah. I mean, I just think when it comes to the, going back to the original topic, I think going with the, secured cards are just not going to get where you need to be for any other reason than what I explained earlier. If you're somebody that needs to just add a quick account, you need it to post quickly because you want to get a mortgage, then yeah, that's great. That'll work. If you're somebody that wants to slow play and wait for everything to age off, and I still don't know why, you would put a secure card, because you could just play a cash position, just continue to rotate it yourself and save the interest. But if you wanted to do that, that's fine. If you're trying to get on the fast track or reasonably fast track in an effort to get your credit rights, you can get back to a borrowing capacity in some sort of a meaningful period of time, then obviously secure cards are not the solution for you. And I think what's obviously, and I think I made it abundantly clear, is be more advantageous on the AU side. And there's some stipulations that we talked about before. Obviously, there has to be somebody adding you that you know is going to pay, because it can hurt you just as much as it can help you. Obviously, it's got to be something where the card's not maxed out, because that you're carrying through that unsecured credit ratio of that card forward to your own report. Yes. And it only helps when it's feathering out your unsecured credit ratio, not pressuring it. So it's got to be a situation that feathers you out and drops that ratio. Otherwise, you're not going to get the score jump as a result of it. So, I mean, these are stipulations that need to be taken into consideration when you're adding them, but there's just no downside to the AU side of things. Like, if somebody's listening to this and they have a mom or a dad that has a $25,000 card and they haven't missed a payment forever, have them add you.
Yes.
You don't need the card, man. They're looking for the spending.
Correct.
Just tell them you want it because it's gonna help you for a multitude of reasons, many of which people don't realize, because when they use that ratio, and we talked about this on a previous podcast.
Yes.
Those ratios, those unsecured credit ratios, are your most active scoring component that exists. So even if you have $500 in limits, that ratio is derived at the same way $50,000 in limits are. So if you're somebody that runs, you're like, oh yeah, I only got a $500 card, and you got $300 on it, that's 75% usage, right?
Yes.
You're pressuring yourself. You're hurting yourself in that instance. Whereas, obviously, if you had, the same idea though. I mean, 70% on $50,000, it would be $35,000. You'd still be hurting yourself equivalently. It's just the problem is that it's a much smaller denominator that you're using in arriving at that ratio. Just because it's smaller doesn't mean that it's not just as important. So, if you're somebody that has a small amount of limits, you don't understand why your scores are dragging, everything else considered, or, you should really consider seeing if you have somebody that can add you. And the example I just gave, I would obviously do it for the reasons I explained. If I wouldn't tell you if your report still has a lot of negative stuff on there to go pay for an AU with somebody just to boost your score for a vanity play. There would be no reason for that, right?
Correct.
You'd want to use it for a tactical reason. And the tactical reason would be, as we talked about in a previous podcast, to help raise the score so you can get into an approval range for a mortgage or something like that. But these are all done tactically, right?
Yes.
None of which you really have the opportunity, though, with, on a secured card. You just wouldn't have that same luxury.
Correct. All you people in quarantine who are single, who are actively seeing someone and you want to get with the person, ask them first, do you have a credit card that you can add me as an authorized user? And see.
That's a terrible idea for multiple reasons, but that's a terrible idea.
And see if they are trustworthy, and you're gonna see if they have good credit or not, or their spending habits.
It's gonna be like a way of being a better stalker. Is what it's gonna be. That's what it is.
Let me tell you something. You show up like who just slide in the DMs, or Miss Divine, who has $500,000 in personal credit cards on her credit report. If she shows, nah, you crazy. You're gonna have so many people on you.
Miss Divine is on her hustle, man. She's not letting anybody get on those $500,000 cards. That is a business. Her managing all those cards is a business in and to itself. I guarantee she's not messing around. So I understand what you're saying, though,
yes.
As far as having them add somebody though. I do
Yes.
think, obviously you need to be very particular in who you add and stuff like that, but it definitely helps on the scoring side of things. The approval, I'm not really concerned about that. I'm more worried about the scoring side of thing and how it positions people for certain types of approvals. And one of the largest purchases that we're constantly helping people in the early stages of our process is houses, right?
Yes.
And any way that we can get the score high and get it jumped up and get them in a position as quickly as possible, if they're right there on the cusp, we want to do that, because the sooner we can knock out the biggest goal, we can start having fun with the smaller goals, right?
Yes.
So, I think as far as the a secured card, I think it's safe to say that we believe that the AUs are much better play.
Much better play, guys. We're gonna go into a little questions right now, Jay. We are done with the educational part of the podcast. But right now we have some people talking to each other on Facebook and on Insta and on YouTube. So we got a bunch of people. Couldn't be happier with my credit results so far. Jason Norman, good for you, Jason. Oh, Jay, Terrell Perrin, was that the guy that got 25,000, or was it Taryn?
No, it's Terry.
Terry. Oh, okay, Perrin.
Michael
Terry. Okay, it's not you, Terrell. Okay, cool. Let me see. What's up, Gizzy? Tyrone Williams. What's up? Okay. Ewok Thomas says, hi, bro. Need to get collection dealt with. My score is 599. I told him to email us, so make sure you email us. I wrote my email address. What's up, my peoples? What's going on? Hello, sir. How are you? We're doing great. Okay, Tyrone Williams says, I just got approved for U.S. Bank and Bank of America secure card. Now is the garden for the next 12 months. I don't know what now in the garden for the next 12 months. So Tyrone Williams, we just finished talking about secure credit cards and what you're doing. So if you're already in them, I guess, right, Jay?
I'm not sure what the garden is, so I'm not totally.
Now in the garden, so I'm thinking now they're they're seeds, and they're gonna in 12 months they're gonna get better.
Unfortunately, that's. I mean, I don't know how the rest of the report looks, so I'd have to see the rest of the report. But if it's a situation where he has no credit and he's adding this, and if there's zero credit and this is the first account, sure, 12 months it'll probably garner a score, and that's what he's trying to do. If there's negative stuff on there, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to work out the way that he anticipated, like we talked about before. But look, it's how everybody learns. We try to teach these lessons in advance so people don't have to learn the hard way. But at the same time, sometimes people get out in front of it and give it a shot, and they get to see for themselves. So, trial and error sometimes works too.
I got DL who says the $5,000 is to achieve a different result. That's to get credit cards with higher limits. Why? ? Is it believed that credit card issuers will match your highest limit credit card when applying for new credit?
I think that's the interpretation, right? Mm-hmm. I think that was what was told to Gizzy, but that's not reality, right? So unfortunately, that's not, like we had talked about earlier on. I think that is exactly the interpretation, because I think this underground, whatever goes on in these social media corners, I guess the idea now is that AUs, among some of these thoughts and thought processes and individuals, is that AUs are now just completely useless, and now you should just start dumping tens of thousands of dollars into secured cards, which couldn't be further from the truth, unfortunately. But the reality of the situation is that we can't get out in front of everybody, so people are going to have to learn on their own, and then when they learn on their own, they'll be able to see just exactly what we're describing and detailing in this entire thing. So, not that I think that people should just go out and aimlessly buy AUs either, by the way, for the record. There's a specific time and a place in specific situations that AUs are necessary. You shouldn't add AUs till FAD doesn't need AUs. They're just a bridge in some cases and in certain situations to alleviate what may be a small gap, right? Secure cards don't close any gap. There's no gap to be closed. There's no bridge to be adhered to. It's just, hey, bank, let me give you $5,000, and yeah, you can charge me 25% on my money, and you can keep it, right? I mean, it's nonsensical to me. I'm not judging anybody that does it. Don't misunderstand me. But if there's alternatives, and there's plenty of them, that money can be better served building the file more, horizontally, giving it more depth and beef to it than one secured card for $5,000 and hoping that you're going to get that equivalent from a lender. It's just not. Unfortunately, it's just bad information.
Okay. All right. Then we have Tanya McKenzie. Hi, Gizzy and John. I have one negative collection account on my credit report. It's 6 years old. It's Comcast. Should I pay it or let it fall off? They won't do pay for deletion.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry she had to find out the hard way that pay for delete is also another thing that's not that common, but that's up to her. I mean, it really depends on the we don't tell people not to pay their bills. We actually go out of our way to say we don't tell you not to pay your bills, but I mean, if you're 6 months away from it falling off, if that in fact is the case, then you have to ask yourself, do you need credit in the next 6 months, right? And how long the potential disputing process for your particular file would take. And you have to ask yourself, does the cost benefit actually weigh out there, or should you wait for it to fall off on its own? I need more specifics to give her an exact answer, but I mean, I can't imagine if that's the only thing on there, though, that could be impeding her from making some major moves. So for $174 collection, it can't be, closing too many doors for her. I can't imagine if that's the only thing. It's impacting her on an auto loan side, even an alternative higher rate credit card lender, or I mean, even on a more FHA side, she'd probably be fine since the collection's so small. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, with that being the case, I can't imagine it's hurting her that much. So, just an opinion. I mean, you may want to just wait if it's not, if you have no specific needs in the next 6 to 8 months, it's supposed to fall off, and you're still able to procure credit as is. I mean, with one collection and everything else done and good on a report, you should still be sitting in the high 6s, and if your ratio's in line, you can still be cutting the low 7s. So that's still A paper in most cases, so it shouldn't be hurting you that bad.
Correct. So, can she go out there and try and get new credit, or should she clean off her credit report first?
Who are we talking about? The same one?
This is the same one. This is the same with the 6-year-old collection.
That. Just saying that. I mean, if it's going to fall off in the next 6 to 8 months, it's one conversation, right?
Yes.
But if it's like you're on the far end of 12 to 18 months, right? She said 6 years, so I mean that just seems like a real general number.
Yes.
So I don't know if it's 5 years and 10 months, then you're talking about you probably got another year and a half, and it may make more sense.
Correct.
If you're 6 years and a couple months, and you might have 5 or 6 months, 7 months left, and you have to ask yourself, do you need credit in the interim, right?
Yes.
I mean, it really depends on the person's specific situation, but like I just said, if with one negative account on there, assuming your credit ratios are in line, you should still be somewhere in the high 6s, low 7s, depending on how close, how far you are above 20% on your blended unsecured credit ratio. So, I mean, you should still be getting relatively good lending terms as is, if that's the only thing on there.
Yeah. I mean, it's already old. But if it's not paid for, but isn't FHA, if it's more than $2,000, she has to pay it?
I think it's 20. I think it's $2,500.
Oh,
yeah. So cumulatively, you can have up to $2,500 in open collections on FHA, I believe now, where you don't have to pay them. Anything over that, you have to pay it, or depending on the lender and the overlays, you can produce terms that you're on with that particular creditor too, and that may suffice.
There you go. Okay.
But she's nowhere near that. That's what I'm saying. That if it's just that one account on all 3 bureaus, and it's $175, and everything else is good, looking beautiful, and all her ratios on her unsecured credit ratio was down or just somewhere south of 50, she should still be, in the very high 6s. Depending on how low that unsecured credit ratio, she could be in the low 7s, which again is pretty close to A paper. So she can't be getting rated too hard on the things she's borrowing at.
Okay, I got someone who texts me. who says we didn't get back to her, but we did get back to her. And the person was asking, I saw that you got back to her, and people are just sending their username and their password and a 4-digit code. Now, if you send us that, we don't know what credit monitoring you have. So we prefer that you go to Experian website, and through Experian, you send us the username, the password, the security question with the answer, and the PIN number. When we try and log on, they may ask for additional security, which will be your date of birth and your full SSN. If they don't ask for any of that, then they'll ask to send you a 6-digit code by text. But we want to know what monitoring you have as well. So when you send us what we need to give you a quote, be specific in the website that you're using. Even if I tell you to go to Experian, right? Write to us that it's Experian, or write to us that it's Identity IQ, or MyFICO, or Equifax.com. So we have no problems. Now, this person, we replied back to her June 24th, and right now she just texts me, oh, I never heard back from you. We did send it back to her, and we said, what website was this? So just be aware of that, guys. We give quotes every day, about 20 to 30, probably more quotes on a daily basis. So we always communicate by email as well. Okay, what did you just finish saying right now? I responded on the same day that it was for Identity IQ. Oh, okay. All right, Jay. So I'll send this to you right now, Jay. Okay. So we have another question. I have one negative. Okay, so DL has said about the $5,000 credit card. He said, my card got upgraded after 60 on-time payments that required 2 cards. I am not saying this to challenge what he is saying. It is extra information to help everyone.
Okay. 60 on-time payments mean that he had it for 5 years.
Jesus. Yes.
So I would think after 5 years, like we had talked about before, if you go back to the early parts of the conversation, were that most people that open up the unsecured cards, right, do so for a very short period of time because it doesn't materialize the way that they assumed it would. And in our reality, the average turnaround time we see where people stay with these secure cards are anywhere from 8 to 15 months, and 15 is on the very high end. 1 year is normally the cutoff. So there's not enough pay history in that period of time to even substantiate anybody looking at it as a positive account because there's not enough time. Whereas in the example he just gave, talking 60 months, that's a full auto loan, right? That's a long period of time. Most people refinance their primary mortgages within that period of time, right? So kudos to him for lasting that long. You typically don't see it. But that's why, right? Obviously you're showing a spending pattern over the course of 5 years as opposed to 8 to 12 months, right? There's a significant difference there, and there's a significant larger book of business that you're analyzing at that point. But kudos to him for lasting that long, obviously. I just don't think it applies to what we were describing earlier.
Okay, so Fatboy 850, which is a regular here on our podcast, says, I think it depends on the relationship between the financial institute and the customer, because my secure card unsecured after 6 months, I deposited 200 and it unsecured to 2,000. He says it depends on the relationship between.
No, I heard that, okay. But that seems like a real leap.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe he had his credit worked on in that period of time.
Correct.
Or something improved as far as the broader report, and what the lender would also have a lot to do with it as well. I can't rule out the idea that a relationship with the lender may have something to do with it, but that's a big leap. A $200 secured card to a $2,000 unsecured card. So I'd have to see the report, and it sounds like it may be a unique situation. I don't know. Maybe the report improved in that 6 months. But that's a really big leap. Where before they weren't going to give him any more than $200 secured card, and then after 6 months of paying $200, they're like, like I said before, they're going to turn around and float it on. I'm not questioning what he's saying. I'm just saying there's got to be more to the story.
Sometimes I've heard of people saying, Jay, that they went to a credit union, they applied for credit, and they didn't get approved. And then their credit scores went up in 30 days, and they still didn't get approved. Could it be that the algorithm knows that these someone work on their credit, or that these are authorized users, or could it be that people are just telling me that and it's like a CPN number or something?
Well, with credit unions, most of the time, credit unions, they don't. If you apply inside 30 days, they're going to just use the same report from before.
Okay.
So that's why they tell you not to apply after, to wait to apply again until after 30 days. Otherwise, they're going to use the same exact report. As far as CPNs, I have absolutely no idea. As far as somebody calling you and selling you a bill of goods, that's entirely plausible. But I just don't know without looking at it to be able to tell. Like I said, to each his own, right? We're speaking broadly, right? So, for instance, the guy that DL, I think his name was, 60 payments. That's a commitment, right? I mean, that is a full-on commitment. So he, at the end of that period, more power to him. He deserved to get it quantified, right? He showed, he stayed with it. He paid it through. He kept it for 60 payments. Like I said, that's like an auto loan. The other one seems a little unusual to me, just because, like I said, I mean, it wouldn't be as weird to me to see 200 secured to 500 unsecured, but to go 200 secured to 2,000 unsecured and do it, reverse engineer in almost 1,000% difference in the other direction, really aggressive. So I don't know if his report improved in that period, and as a result, they were willing to do it, or maybe some other variable came into play. But whatever the case, congrats to both of them. Obviously, that's impressive either way.
But they said right here, what bank is that? And they said NFCU. So it's yeah, Navy Federal. Okay.
So let me ask that next question then. Wait, was the 200 to 2,000?
Yeah, but then someone else put here that a DL just wrote, you know that what I'm saying is true. I gave Navy I gave a 500 deposit and got 2,000. I wish I would have gave them the full 5,000. They used to accept 10,000. Congratulations, $10,000. Congratulations.
Right. So was he military?
What were you military?
Navy. Because is he like an armed forces type guy, or like was he in the Navy? Like was he actually part of the armed forces, or was this through a family member he became?
Are you
because
Navy?
I know there's a tremendous amount of flexibility for the actual military guys, as it should be. You don't see that same level of flexibility sometimes when it comes to the family members and friends. You see that on Penn Fed too. You see a lot, as should be the case, by the way.
Correct.
You see the lending side of things far more accelerated, and the risk far more, because that's how a lot of these were set up, right? They were set up under the auspice of lending money to veterans or to active military. So, obviously we want to reward them the best we can. I don't know if that's coming into it, but if not, listen, you're not seeing it in normal retail banks, but if that's an angle Navy Fed, I can't speak on it.
Okay. Yeah, because we don't know what happened during that time.
No, I have no clue. Like I said, maybe if he was military or he was, because obviously there's certain requirements to be a member of Navy Fed, right? So
yes.
In order to be a member of Navy Fed, most people have to be affiliated with that, or have a family member or whatever, somebody sponsor you. So just interested in seeing if that had something to do with it. Either way, good for both of them.
Correct. And then we got Curtis. Did we talk about the NASDAQ? We're gonna answer questions right now. Then, if we have time, we'll go into the market, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
What's up, John? Marvin Miguel, thank you. California. Always refers as business. Did not learn about it. Okay. The next time someone wants it, SJ Johnson says, the next time someone wants it done fast, you should ask them how long it took them to get in that position. Yes, I know. How much, now DL asks, how much time do you have to wait after you apply for a new credit card to apply for a mortgage?
There's no requirement. The only problem is you're going to have to explain to them what the inquiry came from. Right? So if you're going for a mortgage and you have like 3 or 4 inquiries leading into that, or 5 or 6, whatever, leading into that application of credit or where you got approved for the mortgage, they're going to ask you to provide a letter of explanation for each one of them, because they're going to try and determine if there's resulted in new credit that they need to be including in underwriting, right? Or in the underwriting process to be able to delineate whether you took out new credit leading up to, and we're trying to kind of bamboozle them. So there's no requirement that you have to wait, but if you're opening up new loans and stuff right before you take out a mortgage, they're going to see the inquiries and they're going to get to the bottom of it.
And this is this because, let's say I go and get a credit card right now and I go and apply for a mortgage, and I know that credit card I may use, well, I will use, right? And then it'll show up on my credit report the next month, or in the next 2 or 45 days, let's say. But let's say when you go and run for the mortgage, they check your credit at the end when you're about to close. Is that correct? Or not every lender will do that?
No, the only time they're going to run it again, it's a unique circumstance where they're going to run it again. They typically run it initially. There's no reason for them to run it again. They're not going to run it again. If there's some type of a condition in there because there was disputes open or something that caught their eye, they may have a stipulation before closing that they want to run it again. It's not common, though. Normally, the pull that they utilize in an effort to approve the loan is typically good unless the underwriter sees something that they're uncomfortable with, which normally the system would generate, so it's rare that you see the request. But there are some requests where they try to pull before the close, but it's not entirely common. Now, again, going back to what we said earlier about the credit card.
Yes.
Credit card, it's difficult for them, if you're an underwriter on a mortgage, it's difficult for them to quantify that because they're not going to factor in the full balance, and they're not going to know the amount of the approval unless they contact the institution, and they can't do that. So what will happen is the only time they're really going to pay attention to it is if it's a loan, right? Because let's just say, for instance, you take out a $30,000 loan to cover the cost of purchasing the house. Well, a $30,000 loan, obviously, over 60 months, at even 10, 11%, which are roughly about prime right now on unsecured stuff, maybe 9%. Your payment's going to be like $600, right?
Yes.
Well, $600, is when you're talking about interest rates at roughly barely 3% at this point, is about $200,000 of buying power. Right?
Oof.
So it's significant. That's why,
you shouldn't. That's why you shouldn't go and purchase a vehicle at the same time you're buying a home.
No, you shouldn't buy a vehicle before you should wait till after you buy the house to buy the vehicle, because there's no underwriting. The underwriting for auto loans is, it's a joke.
Don't try and stunt before you have that home. If the goal is to get into a home, then let that goal be first. Get to the goal of the mortgage, then go and get your loan for the car.
Yeah, because you got to again, thinking like we talked about earlier. If you're thinking tactically, if you're thinking like you're playing chess,
yes,
right, and you're trying to play a couple steps ahead of the situation, you have to take all that into consideration. The underwriting on a mortgage is significantly more egregious and difficult and long than the underwriting on an auto loan. You walk into a dealership at 3 o'clock, you're driving out with the car at 3:30. The underwriting on a mortgage is like 4 or 5 weeks.
Yes.
Right. So obviously, on top of the fact that it's going to mitigate, as if you're a typical human being in this country, and you run your debt to income ratios up to the tippy top, right? You take another $100 out of that budget, you're extracting your ability to get your dream house. When in reality, if you do it in reverse, and you do it the right way, where you get the house first and you get the car later, the underwriting on an auto loan is irrelevant. Your new house isn't going to impede you getting the dream car that you want on the auto loan side. So it's a totally different underwriting process, which should always be done with the largest priority first, which in most people's cases, and 95% of clients that come to us cases, is the house.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And that's what we always tell people. Not everybody listens, but
that's why when people call, or when people they get a new home, then they park their car inside there and they send us the picture and says, look what GizzyCredit helped me get, or GizzyCredit team helped me get. Okay. All right. So Curtis Davis says, when you open broker account, they ask about credit. They expect people with 720 plus scores. They're trusting you CL 20K to 40K.
So, but a lot of the times when they're running credit on broker accounts, it's because of the fact that they want to make sure you don't have judgments, because they're assets that can be liened, right? And because of the fact they want to know if they can extend margin to you. For anybody that doesn't understand margin when it comes to equities, margin is where your you're effectively leveraging to the roof, and you're borrowing from the broker to buy more shares of stock, which they charge you juice on, and you pay once a month, depending on who the broker is. So obviously, if somebody has judgments and things like that, where that particular asset can get, seized or, basically taken, the broker is going to work against that because it puts them in a really precarious position. If you have open positions that they're going to have to close out and any number of things on top of that, not everybody has the luxury of being able to extend it, margin, to be able to get additional money from the broker to be able to buy more stock. So that's a lot of reason why you're seeing the credit get pulled on that side of things. At least they're two of the larger reasons why you're seeing that. And I mean, it's logical. But they do a lot more than that now to open brokerage accounts, man. They do a full rectal exam now to open up a brokerage account if you're not Robinhood. Robinhood just wants you to be able to fog a mirror. You can be a member of Robinhood, but if you're opening up like a Schwab or a TD or any of the other ones, I mean, you got to go through. They do all kinds of checks on you now to open up the accounts. I'm not saying it takes long, but it's much more in depth than it used to be in the past.
Okay, so now we got a famous question right now during this time. Marvin Miguel, when's the best time to buy a house with this Rona? If you've been watching our podcast, it's like the second one after the Rona came down, we asked, is it better to buy a home or is it better to refinance your home? And the answer is better to refinance. To buy a home right now, especially with what? How many people unemployed, Jay? 30 million?
Well, we just got a tick up last week from, the reopenings, and, I can get into it. I feel like I go on this rant, and I feel like I talk about this like doom and gloom, and I don't have a doom and gloom perspective.
Let's not go into doom and gloom because we have a lot of people, we have a lot of questions. So,
right. So, simply put, though, and I don't mean to come off doom and gloom. I just look at it from an economics perspective. So, correct. If you think about the fact that leading up to last week, there was 25 million jobs lost going into last week, I believe. 4 million, the jobs number, the ADP last week on Friday was like 4 million jobs were brought back. The problem is, of those 4 million jobs were brought back, 2.3, 2.4 of them were, obviously these are lagging numbers, by the way. So this is from June when everybody was reopening, meaning, Florida, a lot of the states were just kicking in and just getting functional. Florida, Texas, California, et cetera, the ones that are shutting down now. But of that 4 million number, I believe it was 2.3 or 2.4, you can check it, were for hotels, restaurants, and resorts, all things which are shut down now. Right? So if you say to yourself, in the areas where they open, and the concentration of the reopening is that was the big buzz, headline last week that helped kind of drive the market up a little bit more, and you say to yourself, well, there's a very real possibility now with all this new stuff and everything shutting back down and reverse engineering, that good 80% of those gains from last week, maybe not 80, maybe a good 70 to 60, even do 50. You go from a top line number of 4 million down to 2 million, you're just tracking the number from the months before. So there's no real increase, right? You're still staying flat on the increases, which would still leave you somewhere in an unemployment rate, total unemployed in the 20s. And we haven't even we still don't even know where the virus is going yet. So, my personal opinion is I don't think it's time to buy, but you have all these people out that are burning off that adrenaline from from being stuck in their house for 4 or 5 months, and there's just not a lot of people selling right now because they just don't think they're going to get the number they're looking for. So the few houses that are for sale are getting bid up, right? Because even a trace amount of demand, let's just say there's 10 houses. I was talking about this with one of our clients today. Even if there's a trace amount of demand, and there's, let's just say, 10 houses on any market, of those 10 houses, 2 or 3 are going to stick out to those 10 buyers, right?
Correct.
To whatever trace amount of demand there is. And they're all going to focus on that. What's happening is they're pouncing on them. They're driving the price up for those 2 or 3 houses, and all the other ones are sitting. So while you're seeing, the ones you're seeing sell are selling over market, but it's not causing the inventory to go up. That should tell you if the inventory is not going up, that people aren't any more confident in selling their house. It's just the people that are selling have to sell probably, right? They're doing it for any number of reasons. Just like a lot of times the people now are buying are probably, in all fairness, overbuying. So, I mean, there's still a lot of shakeout that's going to go on. We've been saying this now for the last 4 or 5 months. It's going to shake out between now and the end of the year. It's going to shake out into early next year. So, why buy while it's still shaking if, interest rates aren't going anywhere? Talked about that on a different podcast. Interest rates are not going anywhere. So they're going to be nice and low. Why not play a game of chess here and line up your move that you feel most comfortable with and that you do like a game of chess rather than doing something emotional like, man, I've been stuck in my house for 4 months. I want to move from the city out to the suburbs. I got to do it now, right? Why not be tactical about it? Why not be logical about it? Why not be an intelligent, fiscal human being about it and line everything up properly and get yourself set up, find your right opportunity at the right time and pounce on it. Get all your ducks in a row and be able to fire when you see, when you got your shot. I mean, I just don't understand the philosophy of just running out when everybody's running. It's like if anybody...
John, the philosophy nowadays, if you're going to defund the police, you got to leave.
No, listen, there's merit to that philosophy. I'm not just talking about the city, though, right? Like, you're just seeing people buy right now. It's almost like, I don't know if anybody's ever run in a marathon or some kind of long race, right? There's always people in the beginning of the race that always have to be out in front, right?
Yes.
And by the end, the second mile, they're the fat ones in the back that are already huffing, grabbing water, right?
Correct.
Just because they got to start out the front of the race and they got to hit that stride in the front, just because psychologically that's how they roll. That's a mental thing, right? That's a type of personality. It's the same thing here. They're bottled up, so I guess evidently there's going to be a shortage of houses at some point, so they got to go buy right now. Contrary to everything else, contrary to all the other stuff. And why not? If they're asking $350 for the house, let's bid it up to $385. That sounds fucking logical, right? I mean, that sounds like it makes a lot of fucking sense. So let's do that, and then let's turn around and just be happy that we got in the house. And then as we watch the values go down over the next 6 or 7 months, and you say to yourself, you paid over what they asked by $30,000, plus there's 5% of closing costs into it, so now you're over $50,000. And even if that price moves from where they originally marketed it 6 or 7 or 8%, you're upside down almost $80,000.
But John, my realtor told me it's an investment to buy a house.
Who said that?
That's what they're gonna say. That's what they say. Correct.
Absolutely, without a doubt. That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, I have really, really strong feelings about this only because of the fact that I've seen these things shake out before, and this is, there's still a lot more for this story to be written, right? I mean, we as a society tend to use the stock market as a pulse for the overall positioning of our economy, right? And unfortunately, the one thing that the stock market doesn't take note of is all these retailers that are filed for bankruptcy. Today, Lucky Brand filed for bankruptcy.
Oof.
New York and Company was last week. I mean, it is an endless litany.
John, who's paying $150, $250 for some Lucky jeans?
I know, but listen, if you look at it from that perspective, I couldn't agree with you more, right? But if you look at it from that perspective, and you're thinking about it along those lines, and you're basically saying people aren't spending as much money, right? People are tightening. People aren't looking. This isn't January anymore.
Yes.
But we're in a consumer-driven economy, right?
Yes.
So that's the only way we grow. That's the only way the stock market grows. That's the only way corporate America grows. People keep spending.
Yes.
So when you say to yourself that all the retailers that live and die off of the consumer spending, you're seeing them reorganize because they don't see the light that the stock market or that all these ambitious buyers are seeing at the end of the tunnel, then you got to be asking yourself, they're the ones that are on Main Street experiencing the pain.
Yes.
So people are out there bidding all this stuff up so aggressively right now. Who looks like they're getting set up? I don't know. You make the decision, but if people are already under the understanding that, we're literally 5%, Curtis talked today, the NASDAQ is it's been at all-time highs for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. I mean, now granted, a lot of that's tech company, and that's what we're moving to as a society inside. But you look at the S&P, look at the Dow, they're 5% off all-time highs. 5% off is 7% off all-time highs. We are not in an economy where we're 5 to 10, 7% away from January when this started. We're not even close. So they're discounting so far ahead, or so, like, there's just no discounting going on whatsoever at this point, and it's just buy whatever you can get your hands on. You got to step back and pause, whether it be in the real estate market or in the stock market. See yourself, does this make any fucking sense, right? When you have Square today that got up to $130 a share.
Wow.
$130 a share. I bought that at $33.50 in April, right? It was in the course of 2 months, it's gone up $100.
Oof.
I mean, you ask yourself, on a company that literally the only thing that changes is they got a commercial banking charter, which is a big deal. Don't misunderstand me. It's a big deal, and I love the stock. But it is so far ahead of itself right now, like a lot of stocks. It's hard to even provide any type of philosophy to it, right? I mean, they not only are not factoring in anything Corona-related, they are so far away from it, it's not even funny. I mean, they're factoring so far down, there's not even price-earning multipliers you can attach to them anymore. So I just think we've gotten really, really far ahead, and I think that one of the reasons why we've gotten really far ahead is because I said earlier, I think that a lot of society looks to Wall Street for their understanding of where we sit as an economy, right?
Yes.
Well, if the market's not tanking, it's a great time to buy a house.
Yes.
Right? You know, the interest rates are zero. You
Yes.
buy a house, bid it up. Real estate prices can only go up. Anybody that owned houses in 2007 knows that, right? They can only go up. They can't ever go down until they do. You know, and then they go down like crazy. I can't just believe that people have. I mean, I understand stocks are the only thing left. The only asset left right now, the only show in town, because nobody's buying real estate right now. I mean, from an investment perspective, really, bonds are forget about it of all kinds. I mean, money markets and savings for accounts that yield nothing. So you're really forced to drive into there. I'm just shocked at how far ahead it's gotten in literally 2 months. I mean, people forget middle of March was when the market dropped 30% in the course of like 5 weeks. We've made that back up and then some on like Kurtz was saying on the Qs on the Nasdaq, man. I mean, they doubled up. It's crazy. It's crazy. But to answer Marvin's question, I personally do not think now is a good time. I don't think any environment where people are bidding up, given the small amount of demand and the laws of supply and demand are working so incredibly in the seller side right now.
Oh, these realtors love posting pictures of their open houses, and there's a line out the door, and they say 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 over asking price.
Yeah, and in all fairness, I mean, all the numbers that. The problem is they're not talking about the other 15 listings they have when nobody's showing up at, right?
Oh yeah.
They got the diamond property and they're taking the pictures because that's how you sell yourself on Facebook. I.e., go back to what we were talking about earlier.
Correct.
But when you look at a situation, you look at the numbers that are coming out from the National Realtors Association stuff month over month, year over year, etc. The numbers are down. They're down. Everybody's just looking at it like it's great because now they're out of the house and they can go back to existing like human beings again. Yes. So, you know, you got to get out. You got to buy. You know, you got to get your new house now. You got to prepare for the new world after COVID. It just doesn't need to happen in 30 seconds. So, you know, I personally, I know I give a long-winded answer here, but I mean, I personally think that, and anybody that's been listening to me since we've been doing this the last 4 or 5 months, I just think that it makes more sense to really let this shake out a little bit more. You know, if any of you do real research and follow the markets and stuff like that, to think the amount of ground that the stock market has covered in such a short period of time with absolutely no earnings whatsoever to account for, just liquidity. And, you know, if you've ever seen times when stuff like this happened before, you know, it can be a dangerous time to buy, right? When you start seeing stuff like this. So it's just be careful. That's all I would tell anybody. You know, just be careful.
Save your money.
What's that?
Save your money, Marvin, and put a bigger down payment in a couple of months or a year.
Just look, everybody. Here's the problem again, and you know, when I say let everything shake out, I'll know when things shake out, right?
Okay.
When the problem is when people see things shake out, they run in the corner, right? Because the media's like, "Don't you leave your house? If you leave your house, you know, your house is gonna blow up." You know, and everybody sits in the corner of their house, and they're waiting for the guy on CNN to say, "Yeah, you can leave, man." You know, and then they leave when he says it, and they're like, "Yes." right? And unfortunately, that's what happens. So right now, it's like, hey, man, buy. Everybody buy. It's great. Rates are low, you know? Just buy. And if you want, overpay 10%. Shit, if you want, overpay 50%. Real estate will just keep going up, you know? And the stock market, shit, while you're at it, if you got any extra cash, throw it in the stock market. Keep buying. Just buy. Rates are low. The Fed will block everything. Just keep buying.
Oh,
you know?
Yes.
And, you know, I mean, you obviously, I mean, when I'm saying it sounds ridiculous, but that's effectively what's being conveyed. So, I mean, we could still see more upside. I just think that, you know, eventually we're going to have to tie back to some level of rationale, which is just completely devoid right now. And when that happens, you'll see things start to even themselves out.
Okay, that was a 13.5-minute answer, Marvin Miguel. All right.
I tried to keep it short. I tried to get stuck on this because I get this question. I get this question a lot from all different clients, man, and I talk about this probably more times in a given day than I talk about a lot of other things. So, I mean, I just feel very passionately about this, just given the fact that there's no real downside in waiting.
Correct. All right, so we have D-Money23. What's up, Gizzy? Durrell Brown. You did a review for me last week. We couldn't move forward because I did a dispute. The dispute have been updated, and now let's move forward, please. So what happened there, John?
I mean, I don't want to tell the whole situation.
No. But what happens when you are in dispute and you try to start credit repair with us? That's the question.
Okay, so we'll keep it broad like that.
Yes.
So there was accounts that were in dispute. He wanted to get started, and we sent over a price. And, I said you got to get back with us when the accounts are in dispute. You can't have two people working on it. Not to mention, it wouldn't make sense, for us to work on it while you have accounts in dispute. So.
Correct.
This was on Friday, I think. So now he came back today, I guess.
Yeah. Well, he commented on YouTube.
Okay, so now he said that it's out, which is good. So then we can pick back up where we left off.
Okay. So Vito Lepore, hey Gizzy, please send me your email address. I like to see if you can help me and my wife and my credit score up. Okay, Vito, I sent you my email already. Travis Benjamin, hey Gizzy, I just app. What's up? Marcus Tipton, thanks for having this podcast. I need to get my credit together. Marcus. So a lot of people who have been watching or new, Jay, they comment on the videos. You know. A lot of people want to start, credit repair. They watch the podcast, they appreciate the podcast and the knowledge, and they're ready to start.
Good, man. And I think that's the right way to approach it, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's us or another company, like I said, I mean, I think aligning yourself with a company that aligns with your perspectives is the best thing you should do, right? If you're a fly-by-night dude, go find a fly-by-night company, right? If you're somebody that understands the importance in the process and wants to deal with a real functional process that actually gets you from A to B and sees you throughout the process, then align yourself with that company, because that's typically us, right? That is us. So, I mean, that's what we want to be. We want clients that buy into the process. When you buy into the process, we'll get you where you need to be. It's a trust process on both sides. You're trusting us to do what we say we're going to do. We're trusting you to stick with us while we get you to that point. So, and obviously that level of trust, because a lot of our clients aren't sitting down in an office across from us, so that level of trust carries through after the fact. And we got clients we cleaned years ago that still come back just to check in, see what's up. I mean, there's a level of trust that exists there, because it's not trust that you're looking somebody square in the eye. You're building the trust through your actions.
That is true.
That's how trust should be built, is through actions, not words.
Correct. Okay, Tanya says gardening means to not apply for any new credit. You wait for your credit to improve. Okay.
Another term I'm learning.
Gardening.
Mirroring was earlier today. Now I got
credit mirroring. Get it right, John. It's credit mirroring.
Credit gardening.
Yeah.
Gardening's another one. I mean, I'm not making fun of
We're not making fun of you, Tanya. This is just.
We were talking earlier today about the fact that we keep learning all these terms that we're just not privy to, and we just keep, a couple weeks ago, Mr. Vines was something about credit bleaching. Then, today was credit mirroring. Now we're hearing learning about gardening. All these terms that just don't make it to me. It's crazy.
Correct. Vito Laporte says, my wife has a 635. I'm in a bankruptcy and my score is 535. Vito, you can start credit repair whenever you want. Is that right, Jay?
Yeah. Yes.
Whether you in the bankruptcy or you wait until you get discharged, it doesn't matter. You can start credit repair. Remember, the bankruptcy itself is more of an emotional thing where you say, wow, I'm not going to get anything because of that bankruptcy. But what the most important thing to remove is the accounts that were included in the bankruptcy.
I mean, the bankruptcy itself, for the record, is important to get off too. But
correct.
That's not what carries a majority of the scoring of, the issue, right? All the scoring, when you have a BK, all the scoring pressure, the negative scoring pressure is all tied into those accounts included in BK. If you've ever run through a process of cleaning a file that had BKs on it and 15, 20 negative accounts in BK that they included, or even 7 or 8, once you get all the accounts included in BK off, literally the client will be in the 7s, a good port of the 7s. I've had situations where we moved everything leading up and all that was left there was just the BK.
Yep.
Client thought, we had him sitting around 730. Client thought removing the BK was going to jump him into the 780s. I'm like, look, man, you're going to get 10 points, maybe 15 tops. It's exactly what happened. And they were shocked, right? They were shocked because the problem is that everybody put so much emotional significance on it, and they should, right?
Correct.
I mean, for people to make that decision is a big decision.
Yes.
But the reporting element of it is a lot of the points are completely concentrated in the account that you included in BK for obvious reasons, right? Because that's where the history that's getting basically discharged is being isolated. So.
Okay. My people, please, if you haven't liked the video, just like the video. Hit the like button, share button. Thank you. Really helps us out. All right. So, Freddie Anguiano, what up, fellas? Late to the party. What's up, Freddie? Another California customer. Travis Benjamin. Hey, Gizzy, I just applied for Credit One Care to help my credit score unsecure. Will this help my credit score? Okay.
Again, I don't know what Credit One Care is because there's Care Credit and then there's Credit One. So it sounds like he's maybe confusing the two or combining the two or whatever. But whatever the unsecured card it is, it's going to help in the way the cards help is, again, it works towards your unsecured credit ratio. So for argument's sake, let's just say you have one card, Travis, it's a $500 Capital One and you're maxed out, right? You're $490. Usage is roughly about 95%. And you turn around and you add $1,000 Care Credit, so that would take your cumulative limits to $1,500, and your balance would still be $400 because you have no limit on that Care Credit. That would take you from 98% down to about 40%, right? About 38%. So that's going to raise your score. In that simple example, that's going to raise your score about 25, 30 points roughly, give or take. But if you're somebody that's already at 0% usage and has cards, and you add another card, it's not going to do a whole lot for you. Because the active scoring component in a lot of the unsecured credit cards is isolated specifically to how it plays with that unsecured credit ratio and how it feathers it out or bolsters it, right? So
yes,
without looking at the report, I can't tell you specifically, but that's the advantage it would provide to you.
He said, I just received a letter from Credit One. When they pulled my credit score from Experian, it was 617. Okay.
Sounds like there's some stuff on there that's got to come off.
Yeah.
In the interim, my answer still stands because even if you have negative stuff on your credit report, that unsecured credit ratio from 0 up to 100% maxed out accounts for, depending on the report, anywhere from 35 to 40 points per bureau, right? The lower you are, the closer you are to 0, the closer you are to receiving that full 35, 40 points. The more you are, the closer you are to maxed out, the more you're losing those points, right? So it's a way of kind of teasing your score around, if you, like we talked about in a previous podcast, and getting approvals for mortgages and such, where it's just a limited score requirement you got to meet. You can still toy around with it if you're not totally clean at that point.
Correct. Now, Tyrone Williams says, I use my unemployment money to deposit $1,000 to each bank, U.S. and Bank of America secure cards. I have 10 major credit cards and 1 major business credit card, Tyrone Williams says. I don't know.
I don't understand. If he's got 10 other credit cards, and I don't understand why he'd get a secured card.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That doesn't seem logical to me. Why would you want to make it? Why would you want to? I mean, look, if you're swimming in money and you're just looking for places to put it, I can tell you, putting it in somewhere where it's losing money, because effectively you're paying 15% interest on those secured cards. So you're effectively losing money. That $1,000 at the end of the month, if you run it up and you take all your money back after all the payments that you've made, you're getting back $700. You lose 20%. I mean, you might as well just light it on fire and send it out to sea in a boat. I mean, I wouldn't, if you have the ability, obviously, secured card, no disrespect, but if you have a secured card, you know, I mean, for most people, a secured card is a means to an end. It's not a starting point. It's certainly not a diversification. So if, again, no disrespect, but if you have 10 other cards that are unsecured, I wouldn't have any idea why you would be tying money up in secured cards where you're paying interest to the bank to lend you back your own money. It just doesn't seem logical to me.
Correct. All right, Tyrone. Christopher Correa. Yes, there's no limit card. American Express, no limit card asked for W-2. DL says, how can I add 100 points to my experience score? I have no loans, payments, or credit card debt. 14 collections that are 5-7 years old. Do I get another card or wait for 10,000 of collections to fall off? $10,000 of collections to fall off. Jay.
I mean, getting another card isn't gonna acquiesce the 10 collections. I mean, I don't even know how you get approved with $10,000 worth of collection, even if it's just one $10,000 collection, if there's no other outstanding debt on there. So, I mean, crazier things have happened, but 99.9% of the time, if it's a really thin file and you just
100 points, and you got all these 14 collections that are 7 years old. Do I get another?
Did he say 7 years? I didn't hear 7 years.
No, 5 to 7 years old. Do I get another?
7, they should. I mean, that's a wide range. I mean, if it's 7, they should already be off. I mean, 7 is the cutoff. So.
Well, isn't it 7 years, 6 months? I mean, to be technical, isn't it 7 years, 6 months to be technical?
Well, I mean, it's depending on the bureau, right? So they start to kick out around at 7 years. So TransUnion may run out that because they report 30 every 60, right? So they may be the slower end of it, and they may be on the far end of that. But Experian and Equifax should be within 7 years, 1 or 2 months after that, right? So if you're at 7 years, your collections are heavy loaded in that 7 years. I would wait, but if you got 5, if you're mixed evenly between that 14 and only 7 are falling off, and you got another 7 left on there that are going to be following you around for another 3 years, I don't really see what your alternative is. I mean, it's difficult for me in any file to have 7 open collections, much less 14, and see you get approved for anything.
And to get 100-point increase, even when you add an authorized user.
But again, go back to what he had said earlier. What he had said earlier is that he's got the secured card for 5 turned into 10 or something. So
yes.
And he said he has no balance. So you're talking about somebody that's floating a 0 ratio anyway. He's getting all of those points already from the unsecured credit ratio. He's already tapped that out. So based upon what he was saying earlier, at least. So if that's the case, then no, there's not a 100-point grab there.
Because
that 100-point grab sits in those 14 negative accounts. There
is a equation that goes when you add authorized user. The equation is 20 points worst case scenario that you are going to gain from adding authorized users onto your credit report. But when you have bad credit on top of that, that 20-point worst case scenario that goes down because.
Wait, let's go back to this 20-point. Where's this 20-point worst case scenario come from?
That when you add an authorized user, the worst case scenario is 20 points that you're going to get.
No, that's not true. In my experience, that's not true.
I mean you could add, but that's when a clean credit file, Jay. That's when if you have a clean credit file, your credit score.
It all ties back to that ratio. That is it. That is the end of it. So if you're somebody that has 20, let's just say you have $10,000 in limit, Okay.
Okay.
And you have no balance, and then you go and add a $25,000 AU. You're already getting the full amount of that ratio. You understand what I mean? So you're not there's not just an endless amount of points. There's a cap on that active component, and it typically caps out around 35 to 40 points. So if you go and add 25 and 30, and you get 100,000, excuse me, in AUs and just the $10,000 primary, and you stay at zero, it's not going to move the needle. I mean, you may get to dick around with some of these like Credit Karma or something. I'm talking about real stuff though, right?
Okay.
Like Credit Karma, if you have a bad bowel movement that day, your score drops. That is not where you want to measure score. I'm talking about like a real like scoring model, right? Like
yes.
You're not gonna. It's all based upon that ratio. When that ratio adjusts, then those AUs are gold. They're great, like we talked about earlier. But I don't know how we arrive at a 20-point minimum. No, I haven't seen that.
Okay, so it's not by the negative item that is considered the negative collection. So you're telling us that it's based on your limit?
What are we talking about right now? I think you're combining two things. I was talking. You said that you had said earlier that the authorized user that there's a 20-point worst case scenario when you add an authorized user. Is that what you said?
Yeah, but I'm talking about DLs. DL has 14 collections.
No, I understand that. I was just touching on first. At this point, he's already has his, based on what he told us earlier in the podcast, he had already said that his usage is at zero and he's got 10,000 or something like that, or maybe more, I don't know. But there's no usage on it, right? So he's already got a 0% usage. So adding a usage is going to do nothing. The ratio is already at zero from what he told us. So we can add another. Look, by all means, test my theory and don't use Credit Karma. Use a real site that measures accurate scoring, right? And not trying to pay you credit. But
yes,
like you'll see for yourself. You may have already tried it. You're going to reach a point where it's not helping you anymore. Then in that situation, that's where somebody like DL should be like, okay, now I got to get these negative accounts off because that's where those 100 points are sitting.
Correct.
Those 100 points are sitting in those collections.
And
now I guess the next question is going to be, well, if I lose 7 of them over the next couple months because they're going to age off, will I get 50 points from that? And the answer is going to be no, because the reality is, though, as time goes on and as these collections get closer to aging off, their influence on your report starts to diminish. So the ones that are more recent carry more scoring element, more negative scoring, and more negative pressure. So if the idea is that when half of them fall off, you see the score jump 50 points as a result of 100, if that's the number that they're encompassing, it's not going to be that even.
Okay. And this is all from us not even looking at the credit report. This is just us, telling you from what you're telling us. In order to give an accurate assessment, we will need to review the credit file.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
I mean, based on the particulars we're provided, that's as close as you're going to get.
Okay, so Curtis Davis says Navy Federal has been giving people this 200 secure card. My brother got 2,000 after 6 months. We worked on his credit months before. Okay. So we have Marcus Tipton. He said, I co-signed for a car loan with Santander, and the person I co-signed for got in an accident and totaled the car out. Gap insurance supposedly did not cover the full amount, so it's on my credit from 2016. Yeah, that'll need to be removed.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
I mean, I'm sure it got resold, and I'm sure now it's with a collection company.
So that doesn't get reported as a
it'll get
as a
reported
repo.
as a charge off. It'll get reported as a charge off with the original creditor.
Okay.
I didn't make payments.
Okay.
While he was trying to figure out if they were going to cover it, like most people don't. And sometimes the insurance companies take a period of time to let you know how it's going to play out. Once they finally find out, people are like, well, I can't pay that and pay a new car, which is completely understandable. So they stop paying. So then the original creditor will charge it off, like a typical repo, and then they'll sell the deficiency, whatever that deficiency happens to be. And in this case, that was the amount that he wasn't able to cover the difference of, and that would definitely have to be removed.
Okay. Curtis Davis, I had bad credit. Navy Federal never unsecured my $200 card, but I did get approved for $15,000. I still have $200 card after 2 years.
Yeah, well, that goes more in line with what we were talking about earlier, which is more the norm rather than, but But yeah, no, Navy Fed is it. Look, Navy Fed, Penn Fed, a lot of those military-related credit unions or military-focused credit unions are number one. They're really good institutions. I'm a huge fan of them. They take care of their consumers tremendously, and they're very good to them if you're good to them. As a typical good credit union should be. They're very well capitalized, and they're very aggressive with their lending limits too. So I can't say enough positive stuff about either one of them. And there's some other ones too that are really good as well. But as far as the secured scenario, yeah, I honestly, it doesn't surprise me though that they didn't change the secured card, but they turn around and give you, what do you say, 20 grand unsecured? That seems more consistent.
15,000, he says.
Yeah, still. It's a big number, right, relative to the 200.
Yes.
That he has sitting on deposit with him.
And Fat Boy said, no, I had a family in military. I did have credit repair. Oh, he did. He had fixed his credit.
Okay, well, there you go.
Surge Ride. I'm in Navy Federal Credit too. Started with 200 secure card. Now have 10,000 rewards. So I guess maybe Navy Federal Credit Union is the place to go.
Well, this is and how long was that for?
No, Surge. Hold on. He says, how about business? Oh no, Surge. I also Navy Federal doesn't use a FICO rating. It's based on 1 to 400 rating. Surge says. I don't know.
I mean, look, I know a lot of, like I was saying earlier, a lot of these credit card companies now, whether the credit unions are always different in how they run the credit scoring because they have to be much more risk averse. So they combine early warning into their formulas. They combine public record into their formula. They have a generic. They use one of the bureaus. In a lot of cases, credit unions use Equifax. Not all of them.
And you can't be in check systems either.
Well, it's not. I mean, they don't really lean on check systems as much. They lean on early warning now. It's more that's more the modern version of check systems. But they will still check systems too. But that's why you're seeing a different scoring base and absolution on, and a different range of scoring too, because they arrive at their own. They use their own formulas that they arrive at their own, taking into consideration a whole bunch of different variables at the same time. So that's why you're seeing it. I'm not specific. I mean, I'm much more familiar with the Penn Fed one than I am.
Right now, Glenn Byers and Andrew Humpug, they both just said Penn Fed is the place, and Andrew said Penn Fed is really good too with limits.
Yeah, no, they're both really good institutions. I mean, they're just as big as a lot of the retail banks in our country. They just take care of their people much better. Okay. They're both very well capitalized. They're both enormous, like market cap type credit unions, and they take very good. And their loss mitigation is totally different. Meaning, like if you go, not that I'm encouraging people to do this, but if you go bad with them, they are so much more flexible and so much more amenable than you would ever deal with on a retail side, because they're so risk averse, right? They don't want losses. Losses impact them much greater because they're not publicly traded companies, right?
Yes.
Their access to capital is entirely different. Their capital structure is entirely different. So, you get a lot of leash with them, and a long leash with them, a lot of them, if you run into problems, and a lot of flexibility. Not saying that they're not going to report on your credit, but as far as charging it off or rolling it off or getting a second chance with them as a lender, it's night and day compared to a typical retail.
No, there you go. DL said Navy Federal Credit Union operates differently. That's why people love that bank. My nanny Federal card graduated from 500 to 2,000 in 5 months. I upgraded 3 years faster than my Wells Fargo. Boom. And then Miss Divine Brown says to Marcus, I feel for you. That sucks. That's why I vow never to do that. And this is the being what is it? When you get a car with someone? Cosign. He says, I vow never to do that. I learned from watching other people suffer the same fate for their good deed. I help in other ways, but not that. Very good, Ms. Divine. I mean, even family members, I mean, if that's your daughter and she live in your house, and I mean, even with that, you have to just be careful when you co-sign for someone. It's just tough. That's a tough thing to do. Even if people, imagine you did that in January for someone who got a job at a restaurant making money, and next thing you know, coronavirus hits, and they stop making payments, and then it's going to be hard for them to make payments on a vehicle. It's tough. It's tough. Okay,
No,
so
what you need to do in situations like that is just take it out in your own name and control it. Take it back when they start paying. If they stop paying.
yeah, but what about what about if you don't need a car, Jay? You're going to be paying on the car?
No, you sell it at that point.
You sell it. Okay.
You sell at that point. You turn around and sell it, and it becomes a situation where you own the asset and you don't have to worry about them, right? If you catch wind of them, you might have to cover. You might have to cover one payment, and then after that, you figure if you take the car back at that point, then it might take you a month or so to sell it, but you're also not getting the same damage done. I understand a lot of people don't have that kind of liquidity.
Correct.
But if you're somebody that does and you're co-signing for somebody, it's the easiest way to do it. It really is. I mean, without exposing yourself to a tremendous amount of liability.
Yes.
Because in essence, if they're driving around in the car, you can add them to the insurance, but the minute you remove them from the insurance, they can't drive that car anymore legally, so they're screwed.
That's right. That's right. That's very true. Okay, so Serge says, how about business credit? Do you need a business account first, checking and savings? I guess this is for Navy Federal as well. That I don't know. Also,
I mean, with Navy Federal, I don't know the answer to that, but I mean, it's specific. But I mean, generally speaking, to open up business credit, I mean, there's on a retail side, normally if you're trying to get real business credit, if you're on the inside of 2 years, you're limited kind of to business credit cards. So depending on what the objective is, we'd have to get a little better purview on what the broader goal is.
Credit cards are 10% interest with PenFed. Glenn Byage said, it's good it's a good of you're going to carry a balance. It's good of you're going to carry balance.
I mean, it's good if you're going to carry balance.
Oh, it's good if you're going to carry. Yeah. What about having a secure credit card loan in your equation when it comes to getting high limit with Bank of America? I heard a lot of talk. That's the way Bank of America works. Andrew said that. I was hearing a lot of banks prefer good credit trade lines as well as CD loans. Chase, to me, if you are a worthy customer, they give you high limit up front. Chase checks your credit.
No, Chase, listen, whoever just said that is spot on. Chase, I mean, before all this happened, Chase gets you because they come in hot early, and that's how they get their hooks in you, right? Citi, on the other hand, is different. Citi starts you off slow and builds you up. Chase comes in hot. They're like, look, we want all of it, so we'll come in hot, we'll come in high, and we'll basically lock you down. And that's what they do. And that's how they also build that's why they're the biggest bank in this country, one of the main reasons. And the credit card business is what it is. But yeah, Chase is definitely aggressive in a lot of cases. Now, again, I know that they said they're not doing any business lending to the end of the year, and I don't know how they're doing right now on the business credit card stuff. But going into the virus, they like chasing the business ink cards and things along those lines were yielding some pretty significant limits. If your business was functioning.
Yeah, but Glenn loves Chase. He says, I effing love Chase. Okay. 30K with 2 cards. Oh, he loves Chase.
Yeah, no, they're good though. Listen, I like how Chase is run. I like the size of them. I like what they do compared to some of the other retail banks. I like Jamie Dimon more than the other CEOs of some of those banks too. So I just think they run it a little differently, and I think they run it more consistent with how I would look at lending. And they lend good too, and they're great stuff, which you want from your biggest bank in your country. You know what I mean?
Yes. And Marcus Tippon, the person who has the thing with the what did I just finish talking about? The car that he co-signed. He's answering Miss Divine. He says, I know, definitely not gonna do that again. For my 2 oldest, I just put them on authorized users to establish and boost their credit. That's the perfect example of what we're talking about. Having, adding someone as an authorized user to boost their credit scores.
Yeah.
Okay, no, DL, I didn't want to do PenFed, even though they have the best reward program for a Visa card. The problem with PenFed is that they charge a hard inquiry to get a checking account, another one for the credit card.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's, again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, where they're trying to mitigate risk. So that's how they do it. Because in essence, a checking account is an extension of credit, right? If you write checks, go bad on them, that's risk to them. That's risk exposure. Credit unions are risk averse.
Yes.
They're not backed by the Federal Reserve like a retail bank is. They don't have the same borrowing capacity, borrowing from the Fed window and such that a typical retail bank would. So they need to be very, very risk averse, regardless of their capitalization. So that's why you see PenFed do that. And that's honestly, that's not really unique to PenFed.
Okay.
I don't know if Navy does it. I'm not as specifically well oiled it with Navy as I am with PenFed, but I know a lot of the credit unions are very familiar, especially the large ones, and almost all of them do the pull when you set up membership for the checking account or the savings account.
Okay. All right. So Ms. Divine Brown also commented and said that she's doing that too. She's adding her sons as authorized users along with her nephew. So that's good. Curtis says the housing market 2008 again overinflated home prices. That's true.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah,
it's disgusting, and it drives me nuts every time. So it's the same with the market. So I mean, this is how I feel, and I went on a 13-minute tirade before. So
yes.
the available time, I guess.
DL answered to Serge about the business account. Navy Fair wants you to start an LLC first, then bring in documents and apply for their checking account.
Like a standard. It's like a standard situation. You got to come in with your certificate of organization, your operating agreement, or your articles of incorporation, and your EIN in order to be able to establish it. So that's nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay. Okay, so it says RBFCU has a better cash back reward on their business card, 2% cash back. Okay, John, and then DL says John is smart, and he laughs. Square's killing it. Any thoughts on PayPal stock from Curtis?
I mean, if it was between, if I had my choice between Square and PayPal, I'd pick Square. Obviously, because I'm not a fan of PayPal. I like Square more between the two. They're both the same. I mean, other than the fact that Square right now is discounted to it by about 70%, right? But Square does have that commercial banking charter now, which look, I mean, interest rates are dog shit right now. So on the lending side, and I just don't see where that's going to take. So I don't really understand why they're running up to the extent that they're running up. I understand it opens up avenues, and it could potentially open up the possibility of them doing brokerage stuff. And right now it's hard to really fathom truly where that's going to take it. But I just think it's so far ahead of its skis right now. It's not even funny. So I'm waiting. Square's a high beta stock, right? Beta means like how it moves relative to the overall market. When you have a high beta stock, it means it moves a lot more relative to the overall market, meaning like there's a lot more zigs and zags, right? In a given day, it moves quicker. It doesn't move as slow and methodically. A low beta stock moves very slow, very methodically. Okay. Square's a high beta stock, so it's Netflix. There's a lot of them. In those situations, you can cover a lot of ground in a short period of time. So it wouldn't be totally like, going back to what I said earlier. I mean, the fact that they were down at 33.5. Square was in April, and gets all the way up at 100. I think it topped out today almost 130. That's insane. But I think it closed at like 107, 108, right? Something like that. So it gives you an idea of just how much movement goes on in that stock in any given day. But to answer this question, I personally, I like Square more than I like PayPal. I'm not crazy about PayPal. I think it's overpriced. I don't even like the platform. I don't really like a whole lot about PayPal.
Glenn
I do like a lot about Square just because there's a lot on the horizon, a lot of opportunity. But I think a lot of that is baked in at this point, or we're getting damn close. So I'll be waiting for it to pull back to get on something more realistic again.
Glenn just said Venmo now and CashApp.
Yeah, CashApp is Square, and Venmo's been around. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's competitive there, right? But except, you see Square right now with the bank charter that PayPal doesn't have, and Square's trading at like a 40% discount, right? So 30% discount roughly, from PayPal. So you ask yourself, even at these prices, if you're just doing apples to apples, it's probably underpriced. But I don't think it's underpriced relative to where it came from and relative to what the future may hold, in my opinion, as far as broadly speaking. So I do firmly believe in it. I love the stock, but I just think it's overpriced right now, like heavy overpriced. And I said this last week when it was on 104.
Yes.
So somehow it went up to 130. So there's just a lot of irrational exuberance going on right now in the market. And when you start seeing things like this, it starts, like, let me give you an example.
Okay.
Today, the VIX, which I talk about a lot, the VIX is like the fear index, right? They call it. It basically is a denominator that it's a put to call ratio. So when people start picking, buying more and more puts are effectively you thinking you're buying an option, thinking that a stock is going to go down. When you start to see these put buys start to pick up, the VIX spikes. So basically, tells you people are buying insurance or they're getting short on stocks because they think they're going to go down, right?
Yes.
Now, what's odd is that when you see markets go up, like today, the market was up, the Dow was on 450 some points today. Typically, you'll see the VIX go down, right? That's a big update. That's a big update. That's like a 1 or 2% update, right? So you don't ever see the VIX go up. But today, with the market going up 400 some points, the VIX actually was up 50, 60 cents today, which is very, very unusual. It's called a divergence. So typically speaking, when you see situations like that, it may not happen tomorrow, but that means that even though the market is going up on low volume, you're seeing the VIX go up. And when the VIX goes up like that, that means sometimes people are going to get trapped on those buys today or in the future, because you're starting to see people buy the insurance, you're starting to see people get short, and you're starting to see that intensity pick up on that side quietly, right? While people are buying and buying and buying, and then you start to see that spike. So it was definitely something I noticed today, which could correlate to maybe tomorrow and Wednesday, some selling starts to present itself finally, and maybe it'll set up some opportunities.
Okay. All right. So we have any thought? Okay. Navy Federal lowered my Visa Platinum interest rate to 5.99% during the pandemic. Been with them for almost 15 years. Okay. And then Glenn says, don't be surprised when Chime gets up there. They are also doing secure card if you bank with them. Wait, I think PayPal bought Venmo.
No, PayPal owns Venmo for sure. They've owned them for a while.
Okay, PayPal owns Venmo. Okay. All right. So that's also 5% interest rate credit card is unheard of. Okay, that is very unheard of too. All right. So we have I just jumped. Okay. Hey John, a vaccine is coming shortly. Then China will pay for it misdeeds. It's misdeeds. That's what Freddie said. Freddie Anguiano.
Freddie thinks the vaccine's coming. Listen, this has got to be Freddie, you're certainly entitled to your opinion, but you have to assume that kind of psychology has got to be what's driving this massive amount of euphoric buying right now, because it's not earnings. It's not. It's got to be a tremendous amount of hope. I mean, there's always a degree of fund flows, right? Mutual funds, pension funds, IRAs, 401ks, the Vanguards and Fidelities of the world that are buying every day, right? And the last 3 or 4 days, including Friday's splurge, were all in low volume. So when you see stuff like that, it's a little alarming when you see it floating up. It looks like a trap, especially when you see the VIX start to run up today on such a high day. It's very unusual divergence. You see something like that. So, look, Freddie, I hope there's a vaccine around the corner. I hope there's a vaccine tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think that'll take the element out of it. I think a lot of that's already getting priced in, though, because if you ask yourself where we were at in January when we had a fully functioning, bustling economy run by a consumer, to where we're at now, where the NASDAQ is actually 10% higher, 5% higher, it's ridiculous, from all-time highs. The S&P and the Dow are literally at trace amounts under where they were at that all-time high. You ask yourself, if a vaccine shows up tomorrow, what happens? How do you run higher? Because now you have to work off of real numbers at that point. You have to work off of real concrete numbers at that point, because you don't have the excuse to scale out the earnings going out into 2021 or 2022, what they're trying to do right now. So then you have to arrive at concrete numbers because now the economy is back functioning because the vaccine's in play, and you have to totally change your way of analyzing the market because right now the market is completely looking forward to 2022, the end of 2021, second quarter 21 into 22, before they're even going to acknowledge and take into consideration earnings. If you bring that vaccine in, that's going to bring that time frame back pretty quickly. It's going to even things out. So if that does show up, that could be a sell of news.
Wow.
In my opinion.
Wow. Curtis says Amazon all-time high breaks $3,000 a share. Jesus.
Yeah, but you know what? That's the only thing that actually makes sense to me, though, right? Because everybody's sitting at home. I mean, 3,000 a share is ridiculous, by the way. But I mean, just the fact that it keeps going up makes sense to me because everybody's sitting at home, right, buying from Amazon. That's the majority of where things are being purchased and bought and sold right now, whether it be February, March, April, May, whatever. That's still the concentration of where a lot of the business in our economy is going on right now, whether it be people making money from selling stuff on there or people buying stuff on there. It is a closed concentration of activity, right? So that's one of the few things fundamentally that actually makes sense. Now, look, you can argue the fact that it shouldn't be anywhere close to $30-some $100 a share based on earnings, and it's almost impossible to arrive at a number and a ratio that actually justifies it. But the sheer fact that it keeps going up, it makes sense because everything else makes sense. When you see, certain stocks that have been going up that have absolutely no business going up, you ask yourself, how the fuck are they going up? And you realize that it's just, you got a lot of money chasing right now, and it's a dangerous recipe. Like I said earlier, you got people chasing, and they're chasing heavy. And just one real heavy down day, like we had like a month ago or 3 weeks ago, where it's down 1,900 points, cut a lot of heads on that day.
Yeah.
And people are gonna, you're gonna sober some people up real quick because there's been some just blind buying over the last couple weeks. So, not that I hope that it dumps, but I would like to see some more rational levels to buy at where you can be a little more comfortable and not have to buy protection.
Okay, so Freddie Anguiano says, "Hey John, any opinions on energy play Kinder Morgan?" I think he asked that before.
No, he didn't. He asked about the banks.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. He did ask about the banks. Yeah.
I haven't really gotten into energy all that much because I'm just not a big energy guy, and energy's just been getting completely clobbered. So I'd like to give you an answer on that. I'm not crazy into energy, and I don't have a position on Kinder Morgan, so I don't really have a fundamental approach either because I haven't really analyzed it because I'm not big into energy stocks. Sorry, Freddie.
Okay, if that's the direction of the person. Okay, John is smart, and I appreciate him sharing his knowledge. Then Curtis says, Tesla overpriced, 2 exclamation marks.
Oh my God.
So we investors need to put money somewhere.
Yeah, no, I know, and I say that all the time. I say that it's the only show in town, right? And it is. The equity is the only show in town. The problem is, though, take it out of the stock market, right? Just take the stock market aside.
Okay.
Right? And put everything in perspective and just say to yourself, look at a concrete, an actual a material purchase that you can actually hold and sit in and have with your hands. Let's just say, for instance, that there was no stock market and all you could do was buy houses, right? All you could do is buy properties. If you saw a property on a block that sold for $300,000 and this beautiful house next door in the same neighborhood, which would typically comparably, is now selling for $400,000 or $500,000 and all occurred over the course of the last 6 or 7 weeks, you say to yourself, what the fuck, right? Say to yourself, like, that is ridiculous. There's no way I'm buying that house. I can't imagine a human being that would buy that. Because everywhere around here is selling for $300,000. Why would somebody buy it for $500,000 or $600,000, right? In some cases, that's what you're seeing right now in the stock market, and they're being lent on the idea that, everything's at 0% interest rates, and the Fed's the backstop, and the this, and the that, and it's like you want to go do some research. And I'm not doom and gloom. I'm just giving both sides of it. You want to do some research on 0% interest rates. Go look at Japan in the late 80s, early 90s. Japan had a boom and they had a bubble, and they've been still trying to get out of it. And they've had 0% interest rates for 20 years, and they still can't get their economy out of it. Their prime minister, or whatever it is, the reason he's staying around is because he's starting to breathe some new life in them. For 20 years, man, they've been at 0% interest rate. They had to manufacture their economy like we're doing right now, and as a result of it, their economy basically just hummed along, didn't grow. It just maintained because it's not a real free market. It's partially manufactured. It's somewhat manipulated, like ours is being done right now with all these different tweaks and the Fed having to come in. The point I'm trying to make is the Fed coming in at 0% interest rates is not always the end game, right?
Yes.
That is not just an endless golden ticket to just endless up prices. And again, I encourage anybody to look up Japan in the late 80s, early 90s. They're still at very low interest rates. And I mean, are there some other things that the Fed can do before they run out of bullets? Absolutely. Can they invent new bullets? Absolutely. But there's going to come a point in time when the economy itself is going to come to the surface, you know?
Yes.
And you can't keep relying on the virus to discount this stuff. It's just things have gotten so far ahead of itself right now at a time when it doesn't need it, that we don't need this level of speculation, you know?
Yeah.
That it's just setting up for. It's just dangerous. That's all. I just think it's dangerous. And I think it's really dangerous for the average investor, right? Because there's so much new retail money that's pumping into the market every day. Like people that were in the real estate market that need return now, or people that are getting stimulus checks that are just lobbing it in, and all these different pieces of retail money coming in that adds up and it accumulates over time. Like, you know, on the S&P today, the SPY, which is the ETF on the S&P, it traded like 70 million shares today. On a typical day, that might be, you know, 100 million shares. On a good day, it might be 150 million shares. So you ask yourself, you know, that's a slow day, right? But it was up 450 points, which goes back to what I was saying earlier. When you see on light volume days and the VIX starts to spike, it normally is a sign that you're going to start to see a reversal soon, because people are starting to build up, because there's no volume buying it. It's just moving on light volume. Everybody's setting up to the downside, or at least protecting themselves to the downside. So, you know, hopefully whoever's buying up at these levels and feels confident, they're giving themselves either some put protection, or they're buying some VIX protection just to give themselves a hedge, you know, if it does turn. Hopefully it won't, but if it does.
Okay. So I have someone from, her name is Giffen Reese Bowen. And she says, hello from Wales, United Kingdom. Hello. I am in New Jersey. John is in Florida. Hello. So you got people in the United Kingdom listening to you, John.
Listen to us.
Listen to us, yes. So, and the question about what you just finished talking about, real estate, and you just finished talking about stocks. I get the question now. How and why are people buying investment properties in this environment? Stocks are up. Home prices are up. How are investors making money in real estate right now, John?
I don't think they are. I don't think that's happening right now.
And in some places, you know, they waived, not they haven't waived, but they're just saying don't pay rent, you know, for the next 3 months.
Yeah, but it's even beyond that, though, right? Like it goes even beyond that. When you get into a real estate project, you know, I mean, you have to scale out months for that, right?
Yes.
There's no certainty right now. There still is no certainty. Again, if you're good at this, there's no certainty. If you're somebody that just, you know, is watching one of the home renovation shows and you're doing this, and you know, you just kind of, you know, you know what I mean? Like, you're just kind of going through the motions because you got some money that you want to put to work, and like, that's a different conversation. Ignorance sometimes can be bliss in that case, but if you're really doing your homework on your craft and you're getting into this stuff, like, there's no certainty going forward. I mean, there's no certainty about the economy. There's no certainty, like we keep talking about. And in situations like that, you see a lot of big money cut back. They pull back, right? Because if they can't foresee how it's going to come out of this, then they scale in their risk. They don't load up on their risk. So to answer the question, I think the fact that you're seeing the market move and the attention that's been coming on the retail side, a lot of that money's coming over from the real estate side right now, because that money needs to be put to work, right? And these are people that would typically flip a house in 3 months and make 40, 50 grand or something like that, right? And they're trying to get that same yield out of the stock market. The problem is it's not that easy. Unless you understand both sides, it's not something that one is anything like the other. They're totally different markets. So while I do think there are some people making money, and you know, maybe they're bobbing, weaving, or they're just finishing up projects now that they started early in the year, and
how about taking property subject to its existing debts and doing like going after foreclosed properties and going through people who are going through that hardship?
Say that one more time.
How about purchasing or getting property subject to?
Well, subject to, you wouldn't want to buy it subject to, right? I mean, you buy it subject to, you got to assume all the crap with it. So, I mean, you don't have any more. I mean, you can do the research, right? And you'd have to get the bank to basically agree to allow you to transfer the title and buy it subject to, right? But if you're just buying it subject to liens and encumbrances and bills and all kinds of nonsense that's attached to it, well, then obviously.
And to reduce the price as well.
Oh yeah, at that point, I mean, what do you? I mean, if you're putting out somebody's headache, I mean, there shouldn't be a price for it, right? If you're buying it subject to, you should be getting a heartbeat to begin with, because you got to factor in all the things you're subjecting to, right?
Yeah.
So that needs to be factored into the purchase price. I mean, sometimes that stuff doesn't make sense. Look, there's not a lot of meat right now on any real estate deals. It doesn't matter where you're at on the planet, right? I mean, real estate values have bubbled up. They're frothy. They're very frothy. Right, I'm not saying there's not, a little bit of margin to make, but it's nothing like it used to be. And we are so tight, up into those areas that there's just, for the amount of risk. It's the same thing right now, in my opinion, on the level of the stock market. It's why you got to be careful. There's far more downside exposure, in my opinion, right now than there is clear upside potential, just with all these things that are going on right now. So I'm still buying. Don't misunderstand me. I'm doing it with protection, because I just don't see any clarity, and I don't think anybody else does either. And I think it's one thing when you can get in and out of stocks, right? But when you buy property, you can't just buy and sell property. You can't just. I mean, you can theoretically when it's a flush market with cash, but if a lot of the investors vacate that market and you're down to a couple investors, it's going to be very difficult to get in and out of that project. Like if you abandon it, then you got to go find somebody, and it's not really. Make a bad stock trade, you get out of it the same day. You make a bad buy on a piece of real estate, man. Chances are the next guy's going to see that bad purchase and going to cut your knees. So there's a little more tactical perspective that's got to be approached in that situation. Two don't necessarily merge. Two totally different fundamental ways of approaching an investment.
Okay. Now talking about real estate, Githin Reese. That's an interesting name, Githin. He's actually a guy. So I'm sorry, I said it was a girl. So it's a guy. He says, I own 3 properties, 2 of them being pubs, and one being a 4-bedroom house. By law in the United Kingdom, I have not been able to take rent for 2 pubs. That's 3 months of rent. Do you know any legal way I can claim back the loss?
Claim back the loss? I mean, first of all, that would be, didn't you say he's from the UK?
Yeah, that would be in the UK, yeah.
Okay, so, it's obviously I'm not as firm on the real estate laws in the UK as I am here, but he's trying to claw back the loss from losses for not being open. Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, he wrote pubs, so I'm thinking pubs is
yeah, it's bars, but
it's bars.
But was that the thing that he was trying to find out how he can
claim back the losses
being open?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, because effectively, your returns are going to reflect that, right? However you guys file taxes over there, report income, it's going to reflect the losses. Those losses are going to be able to be carried forward. It's not going to get you anything in the interim, right? But when you have income, when you open back up and you have income for the following years, at least in the United States, when you have loss carry forwards, you can carry them forward for a period of time. So, for instance, just say this year you have a loss of $100,000 and it's a loss carry forward. Typically in the United States, you can carry that loss forward on gains to offset your gains, right?
Yes.
And that'll help you. So let's just say next year, just in very clear math, you make $100,000, which in this country, your net income, if you made $100,000 on the corporate side, would be like, let's just say 25%. You owe government $25,000. That $100,000 that you're carrying forward on loss carry forward is going to eat up the $100,000 that you made, and you're not going to owe anything. You save yourself $25,000 in taxes, right? Just in very broad, vanilla terms. So
yes.
At least here, that's how you can pull it off. I don't know if I answered this question, but I don't know what the different tax consequences or events are there, though.
With real estate?
In general, but yeah. I don't know what the tax consequences in the UK are, period. So I'm just trying to give, ones that we can use here in the States. I thought you were talking about the business, but operating loss. But I think either way, I answered it. I would answer the same.
That makes perfect sense, he says. Okay. We have Mark Tipton. Anyone familiar with Blue City Holdings, BLCT? It's a Chinese internet-based and social media company that has an upcoming IPO. No. Okay.
I'm steering clear of the Chinese stuff, man. I mean, I think that, they
manipulate stuff.
Well, you saw what happened with Luckin. Luckin Coffee was supposed to be the Starbucks of China.
Okay.
I mean, they had like some ridiculous amount of stores open, and they were just making numbers up.
Oh God.
And, the stock went from like, I don't know, $60 a share to about $3 in one day when the news released that they're making numbers. So, in situations like that happen, and look, it's pretty consistent in all fairness. I mean, we don't always get the best foot of China coming over here, so it's tough to really buy in if you don't get all the IPO paperwork to see really where everything sits. A lot of the investment bankers get to see that stuff, but you're relying on what the media and the news is providing you as far as the financials and the backgrounds on these particular operators and stuff, because they're not statewide, right? They're international. Yes. So when a lot of these companies come over, you're taking whatever that presentation looks like, and it's tough if you're not Baidu or if you're not one of these other huge conglomerates that have been successful over there.
Yes.
Me personally, I'm steering clear for the meantime until some kind of regulation kicks in that can prevent people from getting exposed like that, if that ever exists, from Chinese companies.
DL says, John said that he's still buying but being careful. Is he talking about property? How is he buying, and where is he finding deals?
I'm always, if there's a deal, buying real estate. I've been doing that since I was 20 years old, 21 years, 22 years old. But I mean, if there's a deal, I'm fine. I'm looking for it and I'll buy it. There's not a lot of deals, so there's really no deals, honestly. If something presents itself to be able to sit back and jump on, I would. I was talking about the stock market. I'm just because I don't want everybody thinking I think it's going to just fall out tomorrow. I was saying more from the perspective I'm still buying when opportunities present themselves in the stock market, and just buying with protection on the downside. On the real estate side, though, unfortunately, it's just not a lot of deals. It doesn't matter who sources the deals for you. There's just not a lot of deals. But I do, however, think that there's going to be deals that are going to present themselves, like I've been saying for a long time, into the end of this year, into early next year. We can't continue at this pace.
Yes.
I mean, again, we just can't continue at this pace in the stock market. We can't continue at this pace being so far ahead of our skis. Something's going to have to give at some point. And when that gives, then it'll present buying opportunities. Now, the depth and the reasoning behind it when it does give, or what causes it to give, or if it's more corona related or economic related, we'll be able to assess at the time, but it's eventually going to have to give.
Correct. All right, so we have Jay Brown. He says, how do we get in touch with John in regards to business credit? John doesn't do business credit. We got a lot of people who ask about business credit, Jay. I told you I had that contact that I have on Facebook, and he does business credit. Maybe it'll be a good thing to do a back and forth on credit and business credit.
Well, I mean, to answer the question, I help with business credit on the side of businesses that are established, right? Like if you have a functioning business and it's not something where, I can help people start from scratch. I'm not the one putting, I'm more from a perspective of your company is earning and you're trying to grow. I can help get you to the next level on the business side of things if you've got the financials. If you're early and you need help establishing it the right way and making sure you're setting yourself up in the right position and not as far as formation and tax related stuff and all that kind of stuff, and making sure you're putting your best foot forward, I can help you there. It's kind of the middle side when you start getting into the manufacturing and stuff like that, or the scores that I just personally don't do, because I just know how the business side of thing works, and I'm not here to crap on anybody or the business model, so I don't want to get into it.
Yeah.
I don't engage in that part of it, because I think that the fruits of that particular labor and the middle part of it and manufacturing part of it aren't nearly as attractive as their what's the word I'm looking for, as they're presented. So I think that a lot of times people can get to that point of building their business credit on their own without having to spend a lot of money. So that all being said, I can help on the front side. I can certainly help on raising the money side. But I don't do the build out kind of stuff.
There you go. That's what I meant, the building out. But yeah, if you need any more, Jay has been in contact with you a lot of times already, John.
Yeah, Jay Brown.
Yeah, Jay Brown. Yeah,
for sure. And you support us a lot of clients. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Your son is being helped out right now, and your son also refers us customers too. So thank you very much. I think we're done, Jay. Curtis Davis just says, "Great show, Gizzy and John. Thank you."
Yeah. Curtis, thanks for always checking in, and thanks everybody that checks in, and follows us each and every week. It's awesome.
Yes. Whatever questions you have during the week about credit, just hold them, write them down. We'll answer your questions live, every Monday. If you have any ideas for a show, write them in, and we'll take them into consideration. We're always thinking about what else to talk about. And to be honest, today's podcast has been about the mirroring stuff because it's just another myth and something else to laugh at. But yeah, John, if you don't, it's already 2 hours, 35 minutes. And then someone else just says, answer this question. So if you get secure business card, do you still need to start vendor account to build your business credit, or can secure business card or personal guaranteed business cards replace them?
Wait, say that again?
Okay. If you get secured business card, do you still need to start vendor accounts to build your business credit?
But I mean, the vendor accounts, again, this is why I didn't want to get into this, but understand something, okay? And I can't help myself. The one place that allows you to manufacture vendor accounts is D&B, okay? D&B, you can go open up a Granger account. You can go get some guy who sells lumber to say that you paid him one time times 30, and that'll help establish a Paydex score, right?
Correct.
Here's the problem. Over the course of time, almost all the banks in this country realize that those scores are manipulatable, right? So D&B went from the only horse in the race to now being the horse in last place. If you guys want to take note of that and get a firm understanding of that, they just went public like 2 weeks ago. Why do you think they went public? They didn't go public because they wanted to go public.
Yes.
Okay, so nowadays, what the major places where you pull business credit are Experian Credit, business credit, Equifax business credit, TransUnion even has a business credit. So what the banks have done over the course of time is the same personal relationships that they had on the personal credit side. They said, we trust these institutions. We're going to start getting our business credit files from them as well. Okay. And they're not manipulatable. You can't add vendor accounts to them. You can't call them up and say, Experian Business, listen, I got a guy that I just bought lemonade from. I want to add that. It's not like you can't play with it. So it's a real score. And as a result, it's done much more real. Right? And when you do that, then you learn how to start building your business credit very comparable to how you build your personal credit, right? And if you understand the same fundamentals, then you understand the same fundamentals on that side. And I'm not saying there's not ever a time where you can't get no PG business funding, because you can. It's just 99% of the time it's after you've built up some accounts, right? And you've shown that you can manage history and not just one by 30 pay terms on a lumber account or a lemonade stand. So it's stuff like this that people need to put in perspective, like we were talking about earlier, and really understand, how the lending side of it works on the other side. I mean, just think if you were a lender, right? And you have somebody that has 2 vendor paid accounts for a short pay history, and they have a high business credit score, you're going to turn around and give them hundreds of thousands of dollars because of that? No, come on, man, that doesn't make sense, right?
Correct.
You're going to lend hundreds of thousands of dollars to somebody that deserves hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Their business can substantiate it. Their business can support it. Their business has shown that it can carry it. Their debts and income rely on it, right?
Correct.
Now, if you want to get a Kinko's card or a Granger's card or an Interstate Battery card or some kind of gas card, then yeah, man.
Yeah. I mean, he's saying so you still need to buy from Granger and Uline, etc.
See what I mean? See, I mean, it's the same show. It's the same show from 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Same show, man. Just a different name.
Yes.
You know, so to answer this question, I didn't mean to disrespect by calling it out, but in that situation, I would say I would not do that. So I would save yourself the aggravation, because you'll realize that nobody uses a Paydex anymore.
Yes.
And they use an Experian Business, and none of those are going to show up there.
Okay. All right. On that note, we're doing great. We did 2 hours and 40 minutes and answer a lot of your questions. Like I said before, John is the brains of it all. We do credit repair for 10 years plus, and people start credit repair with us every day. Thank you to the customers who are customers. Thank you to the people who refer us. And thank you for all the new subscribers and the new people who asked about credit repair and want us to help us with their credit. Anything else you want to say, John?
No, just like you said, thank you. And if there's anybody that you guys know that could benefit from these, definitely send them the link or have them listen in, man. You know, obviously, the more people we can get to with this education, more people it's going to help. You know, more people we can help, the better job we're doing. That's all. Even if it's just on the educational side.
Yes.
Even if it's not a client that's going to move forward with credit repair. Like I said earlier, if we can just help somebody, you know, save just one person save on who our message is getting through, and they're understanding the education that we're putting together here, and they go from playing a game of checkers to a real game of chess when it comes to their finances. That could mean, if they're young enough, that could equate to hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest over the course of a lifetime, right? If you get it early enough. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars that you can turn around and put in the stock market, right?
Yes.
Just a mortgage alone, look at the interest you pay on a mortgage alone, the difference between a 3% mortgage rate and a 4% mortgage rate on an auto loan, the difference between, you know, a 3% interest rate on an auto loan and a 14 or 15% auto loan for a lot of these people, a lot of people that come in with alternative scores at that time. It's dramatic. I mean, couple that over a lifetime. If you pay enough attention to what we're saying and you ask the right questions, you'll be able to position yourself the correct way so you can get out in front of it, like I said, and take the shot when it's there. But I definitely appreciate everybody listening and checking in, and you know.
And say thank you to John. John, a lot of people saying thank you, but John is a beast. John works 16 hours a day. On top of that, he does a 2 hour and 40-minute podcast. John's a beast. Okay. All right, Jay. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye. There go the beast from the east, John. No problem, DL. Thank you so much for logging on. You always have questions. Glenn Bayich, of course, thank you so much. Long-time customer. I want to say thank you to everyone who logged on today. Please like and share the videos. There's about 40 of you guys logged on. Just hit the like button. That's how you can help us, and we could stay educating more people. Just want to say thank you to all who logged on. Thank you so much to the people. And again, my information is below. If you're looking for a credit repair quote, you could text message me your email address. You could email me, GizzyCredit@GizzyCredit.com. We get back to all emails, and then we'll reply back in 24 hours or less, Monday through Saturday. We get back to emails fairly quickly. Sundays we take off, but even if you still want to start on Sunday, just like this past weekend, 4th of July weekend, a lot of people started credit repair. So I want to say thank you to all. Again, don't forget to like and share the content. And the Gizzy Credit song is coming up. Let's go.
Anything you want, then you can get it.
Thank you.
Don't be scared, cause then you'll regret it. Hollywood legends gotta look pathetic, look pathetic. Gizzy Credit.
Hey.
Anything you want, then you can get it.
Hey.
Don't be scared, cause then you'll regret it. You no longer gotta look pathetic, look pathetic. Gizzy Credit.
Head on my Instagram at GizzyCredit. All right.
You no longer gotta look pathetic, look pathetic. Gizzy.
Gente, finishing up the podcast right now. Thank you to all who log on. Whoa, 2 hours, 13 minutes, 14 minutes. Woo! Thank you so much. Bring on the tunes. Hey, 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 hey.
Don't be scammed. What you need
Instagram.
is to change your plans.
Hey.
And time is money, you know, get that cash. When the phone comes, just get it fast, get it fast. Busy credit.
Mi gente, thank you very much. Nos vemos next Monday, if Dios quiere. Got a new video coming out tomorrow, hopefully Wednesday. See ya later. Hey.